of the inn for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun. A mighty sword! Strike while the iron's hot. For Camelot! For Avalon! Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
It's Saturday, SMITE fans, and that means the SMITE Pro League has returned, and you're wondering, Dave, why are we on at 11 a.m. today? That's because we've got a triple header of SPL games for you here today, and a fantastic 3 games we've got on our slate as well. Of course, want to thank, as always, our sponsor here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, that is Prime. They're with us all year long, and they can be with you all year long as well. Make sure that you get all of the benefits of your Prime gaming membership. And this month, there are some great games free with Prime. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, fantastic movie, great game. Also, Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition. That's one you need to sink your teeth into. Yeah, free this month with Prime. And also, they power us, they power you, and they power the 3 fantastic SPL sets we've got for you here today. So thanks again to Prime for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. Thanks again to Miff for being with me here on the desks to start off this fantastic Saturday of SMITE action. Miff, how long do you think you would last in a Fallout-style scenario?
In a nuclear wasteland?
Yeah.
Capital Wasteland or Mojave Desert?
Mojave Desert.
I'm dead day 2.
Immediately.
Dude, they got like flies that are like 40 pounds.
That's
like,
true.
I'm good.
Are you one of the guys that's just hanging out in the broken down house with like the mattress on the ground and that you never leave that zone? You're just waiting for someone to wander by?
If I can get into New Vegas itself, I'm living or dying based on my gambling habit.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I'm not traversing anywhere. I'm going to find where water is and I'm staying.
Yeah, well, Miff, you're not going to be heading out west in a nuclear wasteland,
Thank God.
anytime soon. Soon, the SMITE Pro League will be headed out west for Worlds. That'll be happening in January out in Texas. And the road to Worlds just around the corner. I mean, we're already in it here in Phase 3, but the Phase 3 playoffs, the true first tournament-style action that determines something for the SMITE World Championships. That's late in November, early December. Remember, the top 4 from that event qualify to the World's quarterfinals. And so top 2 really important here in SPL standings because the top 2 teams only have to win 1 set of that playoff event to move on. And then the SCC and SOC teams, they'll be battling it out in early December in their road to Worlds, moving themselves on to the SWC group stage, which would be the weekend prior to our weekend out there in January, where the final 4 teams, SCC or SPL or SOC, will qualify to the knockout stages of the SMITE World Championship, which are happening January 13th through 15th. And, of course, that means bottom 2 teams, also very important standings-wise. We'll get a look at that here in just a little bit. But Miff, we are in it, and every game very important.
Yeah, I think as we start to gear up towards Worlds, of course, the matchups become more and more important, especially when seeding is as close as it is between 2nd, 3rd, or even 3rd and 4th. So the battle at the top, I think, has a little bit more weight behind it, whereas our bottom-seeded teams a bit more solidified in their position. Sure, you could break out of the bottom 2, but it would be difficult.
Requiring big turnaround from some of the bottom teams in this league to climb out of that bottom 2. Now, the top couple of spots still very much up for grabs, and some of that could be determined today because today we've got 3 great sets just over the horizon. Starting off with one that I'm very excited about, and it's the Jade Dragons up against the Camelot Kings. And so you're looking towards top of the standings type of matchup. Look no further than the start of our day. And then it doesn't change much in our second set of the day. Oni Warriors versus Tartarus Titans. They'll be battling it out. And very important for the Titans to start building up some momentum here in Phase 3 as well. And then wouldn't you guess it, another one of our top teams in action. It's your top team currently, the Leviathans, taking on the Valhalla Valkyries. Now, the Valkyries have given the Leviathans some trouble in the past, and so our third set of the day could raise some eyebrows as well. And then, of course, a triple header tomorrow as well. 3 SPL sets, starting with the Bolt Scarabs, ending with Leviathans, Titans. And so you start to look towards the standings, Miff. I think the standings could look very different at the end of a weekend like this, where all of the top teams are playing, the bottom teams, they're all getting a couple of sets up against one another, and so there could end up being some shifting around. I think starting with this Dragons-Kings matchup, we talk about how Phase 3 really starts to matter towards Worlds and those standings. I mean, look at this. 2nd and 3rd seed going up against one another. 1 match separating the 2. Can't ask for much more important SMITE at this time of year.
No, and I love the dichotomy between these two teams as well, right? The Jade Dragons, one of the fastest kill-based teams in the league. The Camelot Kings, a bit slower, but I've actually reevaluated my thoughts on that. I think when we talk about speed in Smite, it really is how quickly you get into the PvP. The Camelot Kings are one of the fastest PvE teams. It's a difference of priority between these two squads. Scream wants to run down your mid laner at like the minute 2 mark. The Camelot Kings want to run down the Greater Scorpion the second it crawls out of its nest.
Right. Well, look, I mean, if you're going to be getting run down by Scream at level 2, you've got to have a good grasp on exactly what's going on. And I think BigmanTingz and the rest of the Camelot Kings do have a very good grasp on what's going on when they're going up against this Dragons team here, Myth. Do you feel like when you're the Kings in a matchup like this, you know how the Dragons like playing the game? Now, the Dragons can play late as well. We've seen that. Do you think that changes up the way the Kings and maybe BMT in the mid lane specifically have to play the game?
I'm not certain that it changes how they have to, but it might change the pace that they wish to set. I had talked to Zapman during the media day recently, and he had said, look, the Jade Dragons claim that they aren't exactly an early game team. They just don't get practice playing late because they win early so often.
They're too good.
But I did go back and I looked at their stats, and every game that starts across that 35-minute threshold, the win-loss significantly shifts away from the Jade Dragons as time starts to move on. So the later these games go, the more likely you are to win. Still not exactly likely, but more likely.
Well, this is a battle between the Dragons and the Kings for the top couple of seeds here in Phase 3 of the SMITE Pro League. BigmanTingz talked about him in the mid lane. We're going to talk to him right now, standing by with J-Mac for the pregame interview.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. I do have BigmanTingz, mid laner for the Camelot Kings, standing by. And Big Man, I want to talk to you kind of immediately out. Seeding is something that's on the mind for everybody right now. You want to make sure you have that top 2 spot. Makes it a little bit easier to get to Worlds. How important is that top 2 where you only have to play maybe one game in the qualifier tournament to get to Worlds versus having to play maybe 2 or 3 games?
I guess it depends on who you ask. Really. Some teams prefer the warm-up leading up to qualifying for those final spots, but for us, I think we lean towards the warm-up going through maybe the lower standings into the bracket and then going up. But you can't really complain if you have to only win one game to get into Worlds. So.
Yeah, so maybe getting a little bit of extra time out there, just get a little bit of extra practice before Worlds. Because, after the playoffs, you guys have almost a month before you have to play again for any kind of competitive. Now, speaking directly into your matchup over there with Pagon in the mid lane, a very dynamic player, plays a ton of different gods and different classes within that same role. Does it kind of change up at least your play style? What's it like playing up against a player like BigmanTingz? Or against a player like Pagon?
Yeah, I haven't played against myself yet. We'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, Pagon's a great player, so it's always fun to play against a great player. He prioritizes the 1v1 matchup and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it goes today. Hopefully I get the better end of it, but you never know.
And playing against the Jade Dragons, the devs talked about how they've got a much faster-paced PvP style of play versus you guys, where you're a little bit more objective focused. Does that kind of change up your draft style when you're playing against a team like this? Because not many other teams are playing as hit early, as run it down as the Jade Dragons are. So does that kind of change up your dynamic in your drafts against this team?
I feel like it changes up a little bit, yeah. Maybe not too much to what outside people might see, but it's definitely in our minds, and we have to pick accordingly to each team we play against at the end of the day. So just have to wait and see what we cook up today.
And kind of specifically as you guys start, moving towards Worlds, I know it's on the mind of everybody out there. What's kind of going through the team, right? Through the team's mindset, maybe through the communications, you only have one last chance to play against all these teams out there. This is your final chance until you get to those playoffs and potentially play in. So what's kind of on the minds of the team as you start moving towards Worlds?
Just that grind set, really. Just trying to get ready for Worlds. I think we're in a pretty good time right now, inside and outside the game. So hopefully we just keep that up, ride that momentum towards Worlds.
Well, hopefully it'll work out for you there. BigmanTingz, mid laner for the Camelot Kings. Thanks for coming by for the pregame interview. I'll let you get back with the team. We'll get back over to the desk to get it set up.
The grind continues for the Camelot Kings, but I think 2 teams here between the Kings and the Dragons. It might be a longer road depending on how the Phase 3 playoffs go for these 2 teams. I think 2 teams, Smith, that you're expecting to qualify to Worlds, whether it's in the group stages, whether it's at the end of the Phase 3 playoffs. And so building on each week, very strong for the Camelot Kings. Now, on the flip side, you got to look towards the Jade Dragons here as well, Myth, a team that, a longer game 2 yesterday, but still a team that was able to escape with the 2-0 win.
Narrowly
was able to escape with the 2-0 win, backdoor for the win there in game number 2. I think a team that is starting to mount up with some expectations here. You win SMITE Summer Masters, you continue that momentum into Phase 3. the fans, starting to get that feeling again as we move towards Worlds. This could be a team destined for some later round play in our knockout tournaments.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the Jade Dragons meta starts to develop and starts to adapt. When Scream first joined this team, Scream kept doing Scream, which is a whole lot of early game pressure, a whole lot of just get active on the map. But that doesn't take away from the win conditions that the Jade Dragons had previously.
Right.
We had seen a whole lot of Pagon playing hyper-aggressive last-pick counter matchups in mid, the Susanos, the Gilgameshes, things along those lines. I think that they are still very capable of going back to that style if they so choose. They could choose to prioritize Panda Cat now that the ADCs are in a much better spot right now with two very viable builds, be it the yellow numbers or be it the straight-up crit build. So the Jade Dragons, I think, as of now, need to concern themselves with diversifying their win conditions. Because when we see this hyper-aggressive early game play, it results in one of two things. It's either the game ends at 22 minutes, Jade Dragons dub, or the game goes to like 30, 35, the games will become a little bit more tenuous. It seems like it could go either way, like we saw in Game 2 of yesterday's set with the Jade Dragons. So
Right.
I would like to see just slight differences in how they approach maybe some of these drafts. I mean, when we get the opportunity to talk to these guys, or even Scream in the most recent media day, he had said, I'm an impact player. When I play the game, I want my team to play around me, and that's just the truth of it. Like, we're going to play this style. But I think that there are 5 impact players on the Jade Dragons.
Yeah.
Choose one of them just to shift things up a little bit, make it a little bit more difficult for people to figure out how to play against you.
You're in a good spot as a team if you're thinking, all right, we've got 5 players that in theory can carry the game in their own type of way. Now, I think what's interesting, and we'll see if draft strategy changes for this Dragons team over the course of this weekend, the end of the phase. Double ADC has been running through the league at this point. It feels like every team has kind of leaned into it to some capacity. Not so much Pagon. Pagon has an AMC game in the last 6, but other than that, lots of mages. He played set once. Or set a couple of times in the last 6 games, and so that's what I look for the Jade Dragons. Now, when we talk about picks and bans, do have to address something going into this matchup. Because of an interaction between Beads and Aegis, players will only be allowed to choose one of those 2 actives in our games here today, Beads or Aegis, one choice, and then they'll have to choose something else with that second option moving forward to today. So that's something to keep your eyes on because could affect picks and bans and could affect how the players end up playing around things. So in your mind, Myth, now that we know you're either allowed Beads or Aegis, not 2 at the same time, do you think that does affect how these teams might consider picking and banning today? Significantly.
A lot of gods are going to get just blanket buffs, and obviously it's not an ideal situation to be put in, but if we're evaluating picks that might rise through the rankings here, think massive AoE ultimates, Vulcans, Poseidons, Krakens, Earthshakers, things along those lines likely will find a little bit more value, or even global presence. One of my primary concerns will be things like Thanatos, where the answer is, hey, I'm going to Beads the hovering death and then leap away, or Beads Aegis to avoid the death scythe if you're playing something that's immobile. That option is not currently available. Of course, not exactly a prime situation for us, but one that we're going to have to work through nonetheless.
Yeah, we'll see how picks and bans are affected here. P's and B's for game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings about to kick off. Now, Beads Shell has been a pretty popular option anyway.
Beads Blink?
When Beads Blink, right, when there are, heavy walls in the game, things like that. That's absolutely a combination we have seen. So we'll keep our eyes on picks and bans and see if and when things might end up changing up for our matches here today. To start off, though, still Kernanos ban, still a Yamoja ban, so things remaining pretty consistent to start on off. And then Vulcan. Now, Vulcan has been banned out kind of anyway, it feels like, over the course of Phase 3. And then a Hades on top of that. I think a couple targeted, but very important targeted bans here in the first 6 so far, Myth, with Hades against Final K, who has really taken games over on that type of pick. There's a win condition for the Jade Dragons now taken off the table. And then Vulcan for BigmanTingz, the type of player who loves those setup, knockdown style of picks, whether it's the Vulcan. In the past, it's been Kukulkan, Poseidon, things like that. Could affect how teams are playing against the Kings here today.
Yeah, it could. I wonder how the Kings decide to draft in general. As of now, bans seem to be largely standardized. One pick still comes to my mind, which is the Morrigan. When we talk about meta mages, Vulcan, the Morrigan, kind of towards the top of that list as of right now, and still available. And the Jade Dragons, or Pagon rather, certainly very capable of playing it at the highest level. So the Kings need to evaluate whether or not that's a threat that they need to address. Otherwise, they would be leaving available some high-pressure selections. AMC still out there, has been controlling the mid lane. It's one that BigmanTingz has had a lot of success on as well. So we could be in a situation now where the Kings think to themselves, well, if we leave up the Morrigan, it is more likely that Pagon takes that for himself, and then you have the opportunity to take AMC, who's got a pretty decent counter matchup.
Yeah.
But maybe with some of that arithmetic, realizing the Jade Dragons might just not go for that pick. So we'll ban the Morgan themselves. Cupid left available, taken quickly. Still a high-pressure pick, has a lot of kill potential, has a lot of sustain in some of these later team fights. So if the Jade Dragons expect the Kings to take this late, I like this Cupid pick a lot.
Now, Panda Cat played Cupid twice against the Scarabs yesterday. Game 1 looked great, 3-0-4 in the Game 1 win. Game 2, a bit more bullied out, went 1-6-13 in Game 2 against the Solar Scarabs, but that opened up the door to the rest of the Jade Dragons to end up performing really well. Cupid, very, very strong pick for the Dragons, especially if you pair it with something a bit more aggressive for Mike. I mean, that's why the Emoja's off the table on one side. Ymir, a very popular combination, but the Dragons have banned that one out themselves. Kings considering what direction they want to go earlier in their draft. Now remember, we've seen kind of a variety of picks from Captain Twig. Could be more carry-style jungler, could also be more setup-style jungler, often pairing very, very nicely with BigmanTingz. A lot of Awilix, a lot of Naja, Hunbats a couple of times, tends to be where Captain Twig turns his eyes. Daji for a while, Myth, was heavily banned out across the league. Maybe considering a lock in here are the Camelot Kings. They do indeed. So AMC, and then one of the gods in the jungle that can kind of feast on an AMC, the Daji, gets picked by the Kings.
And here's the thing about how the Kings just made the decision for the Jade Dragons about which relic it's going to be. It's Beats. Because you do not want to be caught without CC immunity against that Palau, especially with the follow-up being an AMC. It is just a ridiculous amount of burst. So the Camelot Kings have found themselves some pretty decent pressure early on. Amuzin Cobb should be able to act as a solo agent towards the center of the map, just clearing waves safely if he so chooses, allowing Daji to either just farm up in the jungle or split her attention elsewhere, or even play through mid if you want to leverage that pressure and put out a whole lot of kill potential into the lane. We'll see how Pagon decides to play against this. Feels like he's probably got some pretty decent counter matchups. I'm thinking like 3 phases back or 2 phases back when Pagon was locking in the Susano against AMC, was locking in these warrior mids against AMC, because the double-edged sword truthfully is Amuzin Cobb might be able to turn and burn, and he's a little bit worse at it now in the most recent patch, having a bit less penetration on that ultimate than he once did. But still is largely immobile, still is pretty easy to lock down. Could be easy for something like a tanky warrior mid or a set mid to close that gap and win that DPS race.
Well, already the Fields of Love could put some pressure on AMC later on in the game. Cthulhu absolutely going to do that, and this is a pick that Final K has really enjoyed as well. If he's not been able to get the Hades, Cthulhu has been picked up a couple of times. 1 win, 1 loss in the last 6. 1 win against the Bolts, 1 loss against the Leviathans, but very similar KDA. 0-1-10 on Cthulhu against the Bolts in a win. 0-1-9 against the Leviathans in a loss on the Cthulhu. So less kill pressure, more setup pressure. And then the Bastet, for what I assume and hope to be Scream, barring some type of role swaps here. That's a very storied player god combo with the Scream on Bastet.
Yeah, he's been going to this pick through reworks, through rebalances, doesn't matter. Something about Sprack and Bastet, just a match made in heaven, and he loves going towards it. But up against this composition now from the Kings, you gotta be concerned, right? The safety of Bastet is, I'm gonna leap in, does like 700 damage in the late game, I'm gonna claw, I'm gonna leap out. Up against things like Daji, who could just go into the Palau in response to leap and catch you on the leap back, or AMC, who could just stinger you in place, lock you down, can't leap back. You probably don't win the DPS battle immediately. Very concerning. But with the most recent rework to Bastet and the changes to her ultimate, you got a bit of single target CC, which is pretty nice, right? Can lock down a Daji, pull an AMC through a wall.
Yeah.
So what do the Kings do in response immediately? They find the best anti-single target god in the game. Yeah, pull my AMC through a wall. Kill him if you want, but you got to do it twice.
Now, Myth, we talked a bit about the availability of only beads or Aegis in our sets here today. And on one hand, you talked about how some of the insta-delete type ultimates might see some more value. On the flip side, some of the safer gods might start to increase in some value as well. And that's a really good look for Charybdis here with more CC immunity. The Whirlpool kind of gets you out of jail free. that type of mindset maybe for the Kings here makes Charybdis rise up in the rankings in these double ADC type of composition. So the Kings do have the objective burn. We figured this would be a team that really enjoys the double hunter style of team comp. Very PvE, objective, farming type squad. Very good at doing so, and Charybdis plus AMC will help you not only burn down objectives, but that stinger connecting helps you really melt some frontliners on the flip side. And so now the Jade Dragons, knowingly going into the Camelot Kings double ADC type composition, are going to bring out Myth the Kuzumbo for the first time this phase.
Yeah, that's interesting. Kuzumbo was always the answer to double hunter drafts back when Thorns was a little bit better than it is right now. You still have the ability to get in their faces. I mean, Spectral Armor finds a value. You've got the ability to like lock down individual targets. The only concern being that Kuzumbo will probably struggle up against Charybdis. That triple auto attack with kin size as strong as it is right now might make it a little bit difficult for you to do your role of, hey, I'm going to create some space. But because the Jade Dragons have got 2 picks that are going to pull the attention of both of these hunters, the Cthulhu as well and Descent to Madness should do a good deal of space creation. I think splitting that responsibility between Cthulhu and Kuzumbo might make both of them shine a little bit more so. So I like the concept of this Jade Dragons draft. We've got 2 massive frontliners that have got okay matchup into the ADCs, and then we've got delete button style picks, the Bastet with the massive burst damage, the Yu Huang with the Dueling Dragons picks, Cupid for self-peel or peel for his other backliners, the Bastet and the Yu Huang. I like a lot what the Jade Dragons have done. Whereas on the other hand, the Kings, I mean, it's just hard to argue against individual picks here. Daji so powerful, has phenomenal CC lockdown. If you want to go in for that one-man dive with the Trickster Spirit, just have that safety net that is Scarab's Blessing every single time. Yep. Charybdis, very safe, should be able to hold her own in that back line. You've got plenty of defense shred for both of your hunters, right? These are the standard, hey, if we're going for a double hunter draft, we want at least one of these 2. The Kings got both, Charybdis and AMC. This is a very interesting game. I'm excited to see the pacing of it, though, because the Jade Dragons draft doesn't exactly scream, run it down to me, not like it normally does. This is one where I feel like they want to meet the Kings on their like level playing field, possibly around that 20 to 25 minute mark.
Now, I want to zoom in on Captain Twig a little bit here, the Daji pick for Twig. So often the conversation is, okay, you want Palau while beads are down on the other side. We want this Palau to be able to actually pull in the targets. Of course, burning beads always going to be some good value as well, but as far as team fight setup, you'd love Captain Twig to be able to start that off. Do you see enough for the Camelot Kings outside of this Daji to consistently get those beads offline that maybe enables this Daji a bit better?
To a certain extent, AMC will be able to do it, but that's single target. Capri will be able to do it, also single target. Artie will be able to do it, for the most part, single target. But when you've got 3 sources of it,
sure,
you should be able to threaten at least 1 pair of beads pretty consistently. And Daji being able to do it, for the most part, on her own, might even put her in a position where Daji is going to have the onus of, all right, I stripped 3 sets of beads with this ultimate. My ultimate will come back online before those beads are back up, but we don't need to wait for that. We could just have the AMC find full value from the cripple, have the Capri find full value from the abduct. So I think the King's ability to burn away that relic, certainly strong and certainly there.
It's a battle for second seed here between the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. Cannot wait to get into this one. So why delay any further? Game number 1, Kings and Dragons, right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dulcin and Mifflin, as we jump in to our first game on this lovely Saturday, the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. What a way to start this one off. It's J-Mac, it's Trelly, it's Doug for this first game, this first set on Saturday. And I think what was brought up on the desk was maybe an interesting point to kind of go on, Trelly, which is that this doesn't feel like a traditional Jade Dragons run it down style of comp that we've been seeing the last couple of weeks of play from these guys. This feels like a Jade Dragons composition that, as mentioned, is one that maybe wants to try and match the Camelot Kings in their PvE more style of play.
Definitely seems like it, but when I see Polar Bear Mike on the Kuzumbo, I mean, you got to get a little excited about that one.
Yeah.
I think a fantastic matchup into specifically the AMC. I mean, you are constantly getting resets from your shell spikes with the bees. It is a very annoying time. PBM is going to try and either steal this red or at least delay it, it would seem. Yeah, just try to steal away some minis and slow down. This is kind of the invade style that PBM used to do all the time on like the Hercules, but with the Invader's Curse, you know, he would go like the Hercules, follow you around, but this time just trying to annoy Netroid on the way over the lane seems to be the new call. I'm annoyed for him at this point, and now he's just going to, show up the lane a little late and let Panda Cat hit 2. That seems to be the call.
Yeah, Panda Cat gets the full green buff, the full purple buff, and already into a wave. PBM a little bit late to the lane. Means he doesn't
keeps
get
sundering.
any of the experience. Yeah, he's already popped both of his Sunder procs out just on a Netro, mostly just to be annoying. I mean, to be honest,
That was massive
much,
damage. He's
like-
top damage right now,
yeah,
man.
actually, yeah, 343. He's at number 1 there. But, I mean, in reality, how much do you really need a Sunder this early in the game?
I mean,
Just
yeah,
throw it out there.
just getting it off cooldown is the call, and obviously Netroid has already healed it off, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but I think just spamming it on cooldown is the call. But, you know, jokes aside, I do think this Kuzubo can be really impactful into a draft like this. Again, BMT has no amount of peel that's going to get him away from a Kuzenbo, unless, of course, his team's got his back. Genetics on the Khepri, always going to be a good look, especially with a dive like that. But the issue, and I think, you know, the desk highlighted a bit, is that with a double hunter composition, you know, Kuzenbo certainly does reflect some damage and has some good movement, but you can get shredded through just as quickly.
But I think also maybe some good points brought with it is that maybe this Cthulhu can help out with that a little bit. Typically both kinds of Guardians that do want to take the focus of the Hunter, so maybe some split possibilities for them. We'll see at least how those late game team fights start to pan out, but I think for me, I'm going to be keeping my eyes mostly on Captain Twig throughout this one, especially on this dodgy. We talk about it all the time where being able to take beads away and then come back for that next Pao Lao is so important and so impactful. I think that Captain Twig might have a lot of the pacing of the game for the King set into his hands.
Are you as upset as I am that PBM didn't go the Mob Boss Kuzenbo with the Mob Boss Cupid skin?
Actually, yes.
Imagine the duo lane they would have, but instead he's just jingle shells. It's November.
Yeah, well,
They could have went.
to be fair, if we're talking the world of retail, it is Christmas time at this point.
I mean, I suppose. Like,
Halloween's over. It's Christmas, baby.
I guess, but when Panda Cat goes the skin, you gotta
match.
the duo lane synergy would have been insane.
Now, to be fair, I tried to do matching skins with Kyle whenever we were doing the versus the pros game, and
Yep.
he refused to do it. We were going to do the double baseball skin with Heim and Herc,
That would have been great.
and he didn't. I said, yo, you should switch to the baseball skin. You know what he just said?
No,
No.
I remember. I was in
A
calls.
firm no from him.
I was also there.
You think that was the same call? Panda's like, yo, PBM match me, and PBM's just like, no.
I don't imagine. I imagine they were locked into this game because seeding's so important right now, as you know we've been talking about a fair bit. The #1 spot, not exactly up for grabs. Leviathans have it at the moment, but still, you want to make sure that you can get every win you can. So I imagine this team is probably dialed in for that situation. Eyes on the junglers, though, not looking to get too active just yet. A Scream was debating on diving Variety underneath this tower. Good stop at the back by Fine. Okay, what's going to be the go button? You hit 5 and one more minion? I don't think that's the call. Yeah, Scream was like, I want to dive this, but not quite. The blue buff's already gone. Didn't have access to Hunters of Bast, so Variety gets to teleport back in for free.
Variety will come back in. He'll be fine as he purchases up a little bit of extra healing towards his name and working on some magic defense, actually. Very early on, where Fine OK is going a little bit more towards that sustain route, building in towards that Pythax piece that we've seen popularized so much for a couple of these Guardians at the very least. I think seeing the Conduit Gem is kind of what opens up my interest a little bit more. I mean, we've been seeing the Tainted Steel as a possibility for some of these gods, especially when you have some sustain to deal with. But seeing Conduit Gem kind of come back up for this Guardian, maybe raise a couple of eyebrows for me, Trelly.
Yeah, it just makes Guardians, and I say this very sparingly, please don't, you know, be mean to me after I say it. It makes Guardians in the solo lane a bit more fun, right? Because without it, if you're going Warrior's Axe, there's like no damage. It is a true slap fight. You're not getting much done. With Conduit Gem, at the very least, you have better wave clear, and you can do some more damage. I also like the Pythax changes, you know, taking away the 10% pen and adding the 10% CDR makes it much more attractive to these Guardian solo laners, you know, getting that extra CDR. With blue buff, you got 10%. With enhanced blue buff, you get 20. The Ma's going to go through to make sure that PBM doesn't get close enough to grab that Indra Scepter, and Genetics gets to pick that one up for free.
Didn't think he would just outright ultimate for that one, but maybe not having the cooldowns. PBM, while he couldn't steal one buff earlier, will try and grab this one. Does not do so. Another successful save for the Camelot Kings to make sure that Mike can't deny any of those buffs and any of that experience. So far, first 5 minutes, haven't really seen much fighting. We've seen a couple of little billies poked out through, haven't really seen a real fight break out. Gold hasn't really changed all that much between them, a couple hundred here and there between, with these first grader Scorpions spawning in. That's where some of that gold will be made back up between the two teams. But I think looking over, at least to the Jade Dragons for PBM, rushing the Sovereignty compared to the Gauntlet of Thebes or the Mail of Renewal that we're used to kind of opens up things a little bit, because not really any magical damage per se on their squad. It is double Guardian, but I don't think Variety's really building damage anytime soon.
Yeah, not going to be too much in the early, but you know, I don't know what's more impressive, the fact that Scream has 0 damage dealt, or the fact that Captain Twig had 28 damage dealt. I mean, both of those are a hard feat, but that's like...
What did he get 28
I'm
from?
assuming he clipped someone in mid lane, clearing with 1,000 cuts. That's the only reason you're getting 28 damage. But that's my point. The junglers have not been active thus far. Maybe some aggression over in the duo lane, but it's more so just been PandaCat and PBM clearing the waves and trying to look for possible invades. Haven't gotten any off, but, you know, getting aggressive a little bit, I suppose, but probably waiting more so towards level 10 when that Pyromancer spawns back in. We talk a lot about how well the Camelot Kings are able to farm the map, but finally we see some aggression.
Variety does find the stun on the Scream, goes out the cripple field, and gets his dash just in time, only to be hit with the knockup by Fine OK. Hunters of Bass will pull Variety back in, and first blood will go to the Jade Dragons. Fine OK, the one credit to the kill at the end of the fight.
Yeah, beautiful, saving that knockup there for the dash away from Variety Scream. Also waits for that knockup to set up the Hunters of Bass, and that's going to be as clean of a gank as they come. Captain Twig made the rotation over, tried to help out. A little too late. With the teleport available, no beads, that CC chain is as good as they get. So Variety goes down. First blood goes over to Fine OK in that solo lane. Now you're looking at a level 9 Cthulhu. That's going to bode pretty well for the Jade Dragons team fight later on.
We saw Genetics get a little aggressive in mid. He actually expended the dash to... I don't know if he was trying to go for Pagon or the minions at that point.
He was just letting the Interceptor hit him as much as possible. Then he was just, all right, I'll get out of here.
Yeah, and he kind of stacked up the minion wave together, and then I think he just dashed through the minions to help clear that one out. So he and BMT teaming up in the mid lane, Kepri and the Amuzen Cobb, which this AMC, we've been seeing a lot of priority towards the bans. He's really kind of been dictating the SPL's drafting in these first few picks and these first few bans out there. And seeing BigmanTingz get this pick kind of worries me a bit, because we've seen the highlight plays that not only he, but also players like Dardas have had on this one. I mean, heck, just last week, or not last week, the week before that, technically, week 4 of SPL, BigmanTingz got a quadra kill on this guy, and I'm surprised that any team ever lets him have it. Variety will be fine. Hunters of Bass off the mark there, but I'm surprised any team allows this AMC to make it through.
Yeah, definitely a bit surprising. I think it's fallen off a bit. It's not that instant win condition that it has been. Just brings a ton of pressure in the mid lane. You're probably going to be out farming at the moment. BMT hit level 10 before Pagon, so just quicker farm, the name of the game. But you could tell Fine OK not too worried about the damage from Captain Twig or Variety. A little bit of damage is coming his way, but Scream has essentially just bailed on his solo laner. Not going to be any more fighting over in this right lane. Once Hunters of Bass missed on the Variety, I think the fight potential is gone, but look at this. You can see the Camelot Kings bouncing the Cold Fury back and forth. Only PBM is close by. Here comes PandaCat as well, but it's low.
Fields of Love is available. Gets dropped down. Gold Fury still pulled, and the Jade Dragons taken away from the Camelot Kings. A valiant attempt by the Kings to try and ping-pong that one back and forth between the carries, but not fast enough on the burn, and not able to zone Mike and PandaCat out. Jade Dragons steal the first objective.
Yeah, a valiant attempt, but I just don't see the reason. I guess trying to sneak it, but the second PBM and PandaCat walk up, I mean, I think the Dragons played it perfectly, dropping Fields of Love, and then Mike going into the ultimate made sure that it couldn't be reset. That was a true 50-50. But the Camelot Kings didn't have to make that play. I guess it was a low-risk play for them because it's so early on. The Gold Fury certainly gets more value as the game goes on. So because it was so early, they weren't too worried. But that's going to put the gold lead in favor of the Jade Dragons even more so, about 2,000 in their hands. And that's even before Pyromancer spawns back in. You got to remember, Fine OK's ahead on this side of the map. Whenever solo laners have this sort of pressure, that Pyromancer is so much easier to pull because they're just able to clear the wave effectively. Variety, dash canceled out. You got to imagine it's going to be some juke shoes to get out of this one.
Sense of Madness up. Variety heals as much as he can. The knockup is good. Scream holding on to that ultimate until he needs it. He might not even need it. Stun is good. And Fine OK gets the second kill of the game, not just for himself, but for the team as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty telegraphed gank. Unfortunately for Variety, so easy to stun out that form, or at the very least root it out, especially when Fine OK's playing as he is on this Cthulhu. So now level 12 is the Cthulhu at 10 minutes. Gets action to that second relic. The Blink is going to be purchased here. I can't wait to see what he's able to do with that, right? Cthulhu's blinking to the back line. Top of the damage charts at the moment for good reason. The way that Final K is itemized, he's got a fair bit of damage with the Manticore spikes and the Pythags. But as I said earlier, Pyromancer has spawned back in. Looks like not going to be the call for now. Pagon's looking a little worse for wear, but actually, the Camelot Kings are setting up for a pull.
This is just the way the Kings have liked to play. Get these early objectives, the PvE mindset. Didn't work out last time. Pyromancer does go to the Kings this time. And now PBM in a bit of danger. Stinger down, picked back up by BMT. And Pyromancer for free, only having to expend an AMC ult by getting the reset. It's really not much to have to expend there. Just a few seconds on that cooldown until it's back up.
Yeah, I did like that call. You know, the Gold Fury was a bit questionable, but the Pyromancer much more easy to go for, especially when Pagon was as weak as he was. It was essentially just PBM going for a 50-50, and that's not going to be the easiest time to go for a steal. So Camelot Kings able to farm a little bit more gold in their pockets for the time being. Take a look at the XP, though. You can see BMT has a level up, but besides that, the rest of the Kings are a little bit down right now in XP. I mean, Genetics is sitting just fine, but hasn't backed in quite some time either. He's got the Mail of Renewal, but went for the full Fortifying Shell, decided to put all his gold into upgrading that relic for the time being. Some extra safety for his team can go a long way. Haven't seen a true team fight, though. I imagine once Final K does decide to rotate out from this lane, we could see a bunch more aggression, but at the moment, Primal Fury's not up, Pyro's down. Probably just going to be some farming for a bit.
Variety trying to play bully in the solo. Keep Final K away from the totem, which will now go down to Variety. Pretty split control on that one, as far as the solo lane has been concerned. Manticore Spike picked up by both solo laners, which we haven't been seeing it so much on the Cthulhu. The RDO does make a lot of sense, but it's not item that we've been seeing Cthulhu's pick up as of recent, so curious his decision by that on the Final K. Does have quite a few ways to at least get some value from that. PBM pushes Captain Twig against the wall. Captain Twig will be fine, has that Trickster Spirit, able to get back to Genetics and return back to just this neutral state. I mean, the Jade Dragons, you can see PBM and the team really wants to get a fight going, but Camelot Kings are having none of it.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like it. Now the Camelot Kings are rotating over to PBM, but Scream's on the way over here.
Watery Grave pushes 3 away. Stinger now down. Scream will pre-beats before the chain even connects, so Palau only going to find value onto Scream for the time being. Pagon rotating over. Trebuchet was pushing up left, but not going to get any value there.
Yeah, I did like the attempt. PBM gets down real low, but with the build, this Kuzubo's went the Sovereignty into the Tier 2 breastplate. Lots of fizz procs, even with the Stinger. Not going to be able to find enough damage to burn through this health bar just yet. Full breastplate of Valor picked up for Mike, and now going to be even more difficult to try and find a kill in that regard. So I imagine probably just chilling up until that Primal Fury spawns in. Well, with the gold that the Jade Dragons have, you would think they would be the ones trying to get aggressive on that left side of the map, but it's been the Camelot Kings more often than not starting these fights. Blink on a Captain Twig from Scream, finds absolutely nothing. Just gonna 1,000 cuts away and no fear, but now Panda Cat was trying to get aggressive. This is what I'm talking about. The duo lane of the Jade Dragons has been constantly up at this purple buff. I mean, Netroid has not had any free time to himself to clear the wave.
BigmanTingz, one more hit. Is the lash enough? It is. Scream grabs the first kill for himself in the game. Puts Pagon up with an assist of his own. 1-0-2 now on the Bastet. I'm not sure what happened to BigmanTingz. Just losing out on the poke war to Pagon, it seems. Ultimate was expended by the Yu Huang, so possibly just got pushed back out of tower and then ate the full 1-2 combo. And then, well, Scream's there for cleanup. He'll throw the cat out, but nothing for the cat to gain at that point. Mid-camps are down.
Yeah, I imagine BMT was a bit of an ego play. You can see the beads are still up. After that root from Pagon hits, I'm beadsing and running away. But he's like, I know my damage numbers. I know Yu Huang can't kill me. And he's like, oh wait, Scream was right there over the wall. Like, I probably should have beats and just ran away at that point, or at the very least beats the ultimate beforehand. Didn't work out. That's going to be 3 kills in favor of the Dragons. You can see Variety teleported in, possibly just to help out Twig if need be. Or maybe just putting some pressure towards the left side of the map. Not going to be the call, though. With the Primal Fury back up, I do expect to see the Jade Dragons at least get some vision over on this side. But it looks like for now, probably just going to sit back. I'm keeping my eye on Final K, though. Is walking over on a ward, possibly looking towards mid lane. But more so hovering back and forth between the solo lane, saying, if you guys need me, we can pull. But if not, like, I'd like to just keep farming for now. I'm not that tanky. level 15 Cthulhu, definitely going to be difficult to kill, but not impossible with Netroid finishing up that kin size.
Yeah, okay, did end up going back over towards his own lane. 3 collapse onto PBM, but fairly tanky on the turtle. Not quite enough damage. Had Netroid been there, maybe that's the kill. Captain Twig even teleports in. Now he's in the middle of 4. Beads are up for Panda Cat. Mike will ult to get out of that. Scream used his ultimate.
Again?
Throws it off to the side, but the Jade Dragons have stolen the Primal Fury. The Camelot Kings just cannot get this Fury for themselves. And this time around, it was Pagon who steals it away with the Phoenix Fire.
I mean, this is the same thing that happened last time, though. The Camelot Kings pull. I mean, Panda Cat walks up. He has to beat the Powwow, but drops Fields of Love and pulls the Fury himself. The Camelot Kings reset. Panda says, nah, I'm going to just pull it and go for the steal. Luckily, Pagon was there to help out with that DPS. But once again, the objective that was started by the Camelot Kings will be finished by the Jade Dragons. You saw the gold lead there. Pagon, a little bit off the mark on the Dueling Dragons, more so clearing the wave in that regard. But Pyromancer is also back up. Lots of ultimates up for the Camelot Kings. But you'd think the Jade Dragons are probably just going to sit around here. With Fine OK at level 17, I don't imagine there's too much on the map that they're afraid of.
Not just him, but Pagon also at 17. Scream close behind at 16. With 4 of the Dragons on this side of the map, only 3 of the Kings, Netroid, and BigmanTingz on their way over. So all 5 of the Camelot Kings are ready for this, and Dragons have rotated in. Captain Twig, low before the fight has even really broken out. He's got the Scare's Blessing, and it will get proc. But how far can he go? Another shell is popped to keep him alive. Another shell is out there to keep him alive. All of the resources to make sure Captain Twig lives, and he does so. Fine OK does not get the back of the bees spread from Panda Cat over to Fine OK. That will keep the Cthulhu in this fight a little longer. But Fine OK does have teleport. He'll head back to base and reset.
Yeah, that is going to be the call now. The Camelot Kings grouped up, going to take this tier 1 tower before that teleport even gets channeled. And now a possible pull from the Camelot Kings. We did see a lot of ultimates used by the Jade Dragons there in that fight. Fields of Love, the only one still available, and I imagine that Pyromancer goes down for absolute free. Good zone duty by Variety, making sure that Fine OK doesn't even get the chance. So now sitting 3-1, about a 2K gold lead and experience in favor still of the Jade Dragons, but the Camelot Kings have shown they're not afraid to fight into a bit of a deficit, especially this early on in the game. Pre-20 minutes, that 2K gold lead, not going to be the biggest deal, but Fine OK did just back and get the Nemean, and that's going to start to add up. Those block stacks, especially in a Cthulhu ult, can be really annoying when you're trying to burn through them.
Not only a Nemean, check out what Polar Bear Mike has picked up for his second relic. Already had that Sunder and upgraded to the Splash, but a spicy Thorns pickup for PBM on the Kuzenbo. Pop that second ability, those shell spikes, pop those Thorns, and well, no hunter or really anybody's going to want to hit you for at least a few seconds.
I want to see him dance on BMT's beads, bees, and just kill him that way. You know, like BMT gets really low, he throws the honey.
Like that Tsukuyomi
yeah,
play
the
with the cow
Tsukuyomi
drops.
clips,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Where he just runs away, he's like, oh, I got out. And then you just see 2 Thorns and then just run around in circles on the bees. That would be just too poetic. Unfortunately, as of now, Mike has no damage. I really do appreciate like 1 flat pen item on these Kuzenbo builds when you're trying to be that facilitator, but without Blink, I suppose the idea is you're going to get value out of the Sunder killing tanks, and if you do decide to be annoying in the backline with the Watery Grave, with the Shell Spikes, and the Thorns combo, you know, these ADCs are probably not going to like it. I'm treating this more of a test, though, because Thorns has fallen out of the meta in a big way. If Mike pops off here, if Mike does like some more damage, and especially late game, then, you know, I'll accept that Thorns might be back. But as of now, I'm not sold on it.
Group up by the Dragons around the Fire Giant pit. See if they can get a pick here up against Genetics. Pulls him back with the Hundreds of Bass. A lot of damage. Gets the revive off just in time, but there's a Fields of Love, a Dueling Dragons, a lot used to try and kill the Khepri. They do so. Can Captain Twig get a pull with the Powwow? It's only on a Panda Cat. Meanwhile, Fine OK in the back line. Ultimate up in the middle of 4. Finds a double knock-up, and Scream has rotated in to help. But Variety's not taking a lot of damage. Netroid was able to get away. And now the damage is starting to bleed through against the Kings. Fine OK playing zone duty on the Cthulhu while the rest of his team starts to fall back.
I love that call there from Mike. I mean, it's just so easy to pick a Khepri off a play like that. Just push into ultimate from Scream, Sunder him on the way. By the time the cat picks him up, I mean, you're already proccing Scarab's Blessing and then an easy kill there. Especially with the way that Genetics is itemized. You got Shell and Bracer. What does Sunder do? It explodes shields. And also, you don't have beats. The CC chain is always going to be clean. So now Genetics has to watch his position, and you can see either going into a Spirit Robe or a Magi. I imagine with how much CC the Jade Dragons have, it's probably the Spirit Robe. It's not going to help that much until late game. Mike even went for the Relic Dagger. So those Sunders are going to be flying. It is going to be very difficult to be a frontliner. More specifically, a Khepri in this situation. Just a very big target for all this CC. And the Jade Dragons seem to be fine with just grabbing that pick and backing up. Looks like we're going to have a full reset here as that Gold Fury finally spawns back in.
So far, we haven't really had to see what happens when two hunters focus in on a single target of the Jade Dragons. That was something that the desk was kind of bringing up, was that double hunter works really good against Cthulhu, also works really well against Kuzumbo. But we haven't really had an opportunity from the Kings to kind of see what those two hunters can do when they're teaming up with each other onto one target, because every time it's, hey, we need to bail Genetics out, or hey, we need to bail this player out, or hey, we've got to get ourselves out of this fight. So I wonder, as we start moving in towards the later game, as we really, at this point, we still don't have much of a lead kind of spiraling up right now, so it's still fairly even. But I want to see what the capabilities of this double hunter is against this comp. Maybe we can see it here as Final K and PBM are the only targets. Final K up into the madness. Will get some damage up against just Genetics, but Genetics and Variety should be fine. This Cthulhu not really hitting as hard as he had imagined.
Yeah, it seemed like Final K, that was not a panic ult, but a safety ult. Rather use it than not use it in that situation. I don't think he was in too much trouble. It was probably PBM as the prime target, but once the second dash came through, the rest of the Camelot Kings like, okay, they're probably out, but Final K smart, just saying, hey, I don't want to get too low, especially when Fire Giant could be on the cards. I mean, it's 22 minutes in, double ADC composition. So uses the madness rather than losing his life. And a little bit wasted in that regard, but at least lives to see another day. Pyromancer's going to spawn back in at this point. We haven't really seen the fighting over on the left side of the map. I would say both of these ADCs have essentially abandoned posts. No one is clearing that wave as of recent. It's been all over here all the time. Scream off the mark, losing this 1v1, but here comes Mike.
He's got back up, but he
jumps on
back
the bees!
into the honey.
You're jumping on the bees, bro?
Why go back into the honey? But 1-for-1 trade, that's mid for jungle, but maybe even more. PBM pulled back in, takes a lot, the root connects, the cripple is there. PBM still holding on to ultimate. Will be fine since he got back up with the rest of his team now. PandaCat, Pagon, and Final K teaming up to make sure that the support makes it out.
Yeah, unfortunate, but I suppose a trade in that regard. Scream would have loved to hit that ultimate and not have to worry about the damage coming from BMT. Got both relics, though, so could be in some trouble later on. Pyromancer started and burned through by the Camelot Kings. That's going to be a small boon and goal, but definitely something the Camelot Kings are happy to grab, as well as that greater Scorpion invade. With the fact that BMT's gone for 10 seconds and Scream gone for 8 seconds, neither one of these teams are feeling too confident to make a pull onto the objective, so Fire Giant will go untouched for now. But looking at these itemization, I mean, BMT's able to finish up that Bluestone Brooch and mirrored around. Pagon also was able to finish up that Pendulum of Ages. We're seeing some starter items upgraded here. Pretty much only for the mid laners, but still, that's going to be a big upgrade to their damage and their DPS as this fight continues. But I got my eyes on the beats timer of the beat. When BMT's beats come back up in 90 seconds, he'll be a lot safer, but look at all the CC the Jade Dragons have. I imagine that's got to be a prime target.
Yeah. Pagon with the dragons, even with just the root. PBM with literally anything inside of his
Literally
kit.
anything.
All the PBM has to do is walk up slowly to him, and that speed's threatened, just like towards Genetics. He gets grabbed once again. So far, only one ult expended, and that's all that they will need to take down the Khepri. 1-for-1 ult, but 1 kill for the Dragons, who will now start up the Fire Giant. Camelot Kings have 4 here. This Fire Giant is slowly whittling away. Final K will be in a little bit of danger, but Captain Twig down to a 3rd HP. Final K into the madness to zone 3 away, so the Jade Dragons can grab fire.
And that's going to be pretty free. Again, there's just no way that Genetics can survive. I like the itemization change immediately. The Magi, but now the Camelot Kings, they don't care. They're going in for the fight here.
Final K and PBM will get pulled back into the Paladin. This could be a huge turnaround for the Kings as they pick off Final K. Can they grab PBM? Stun is available for Variety. Does find it slow from the honey onto BigmanTingz. And they need a little bit more damage. The root is just enough from Variety. 2 of the Dragons now without their Fire Giant buffs. Sustain gone from the tanks. But all the while, The Dragons take the right side tier 2, but the Camelot Kings trade out with a tier 2 of their own.
Oh, if Genetics didn't know Panda Cat was backing, I was going to say if some backs get stopped, maybe that mid Phoenix was on the eyes of the Camelot Kings. Not a great fight, though, for the Jade Dragons. All things considered, you win out, you get the Fire Giant. I do not know why the call was to try and take a 3v4 in mid lane with, I mean, I guess because Genetics was down, but, you know, the rule is as old as Smite itself. Get the objective, get out. I mean, that's always the call, right? Especially when the lead is not this massive. So the Camelot Kings take FG off 2, as well as grabbing that Fury for themselves, trying to close up a bit of that gold lead and actually push themselves pretty much ahead here. It's relatively even, all things considered. 100 gold separating these teams. The Jade Dragons, though, still do have FG on 3, and the most important at that, and Panda Cat can still do the objective damage when pushing up for these towers and Phoenixes alike. Now we're going to see a full-on grouping over on the left side of the map. Genetics still really can't exist at the front of the fight, but did pick up the Magi Shelter. So that's going to help out a ton, right? The call has been PBM pushes him into a wall, Scream ults him, Sunder, you get Scarab's Blessing and then kill him on impact. It's happened so many times, twice now. With the Magi Shelter, that's going to help out a bit. You got to imagine just trying to get down the Magi is the name of the game here for the Jade Dragons. But tier 2 and right's gone. Tier 1 on the left is gone, and now the Jade Dragons are going to step up to the tier 2 over and left, but the Camelot Kings aren't giving this up for free.
No, they've got at least a little bit of extra defense by picking up that Gold Fury just a moment ago to help out with these tier 2 defenses. And they'll push all 5 of their team, that being the Camelot Kings, to make sure that this tier 2 does not go down for free to the Jade Dragons. Scream, the only one who hasn't joined the fight. He's instead over at mid, pushing up a tier 1 by himself. In fact, he's not even going to go into the tower. Well, I guess he had to wait for the minions to help him out in that regard.
Those things hurt.
Those towers do hurt. They do a lot of damage. He's got a wave to help him out now. But the Dragons are really slow playing this. They've only got another minute 15 until this buff wears away. They've gotten towers on the right side, tier 1 on the left. They can grab a couple more towers, even just one more. Could get a lot of value from this FG.
Yeah, certainly could. The Camelot Kings, though, I would say, are sitting just fine. PBM going to take a little bit of damage. The final K goes into the madness.
Sunder does hit Netroid, but Variety is picked away. Finds a triple stun in the backline, and the Peas are out there, but the Stinger is off the mark. PBM reflecting a lot of damage right back through. And Variety hit by the knockout. Pagon goes in. Doesn't have the damage to take out Variety, who will dive into the middle of everybody. He's got that Scarab's Blessing, but he'll make it back to safety. And surely look at the Thorn's cooldown on Mike. It's almost back up already. Their Relic Dagger pushes that thing to such a low cooldown, and all the damage thrown back in has made it to where he started the fight with it, and he's got it back at the end.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of a 1v1 there from Screaming Captain Twig in the mid lane, but it's not going to be. There was no kill netted, and that tier 2 tower still stands tall. I got to imagine, I mean, Fire runs out in 13 seconds. All things considered, the Camelot Kings have to be pretty happy with how that FG went. I mean, sure, they lost 2 tier 2 towers, but they gained 1 themselves. They won the fight immediately after, and their base is unbroken. So all things considered, I don't imagine the Camelot Kings are too worried about that Fire Giant, but now the next one, it'll definitely be enhanced, actually. So the enhanced FG certainly will change some things. So the Camelot Kings are immediately going to set up towards this Fire Giant, set some more vision down. Variety dropping 2, just next to that Greater Scorpion. But the Jade Dragons team fight, I think, really contingent on Mike getting to the backline, not letting these carries free cast, and also eating up some of the damage for Final K. Because we've seen when Final K goes into the ult, yeah, he does a lot of damage and looks cool, but if he's focused by BMT and Netroid, he gets shred through so quickly. So, you know, this Kuzumo has to get to the backline and eat up some of that damage for Final K. But when that does happen, their team fight looks pretty crisp.
I think Mike has a great opportunity to do so. Doug, if we can get another hover back on the Thorns now that we've got maybe a moment of downtime to kind of look. 80-second cooldown, basically halved because of Relic Dagger. So every 40 seconds this thing comes back up and essentially gives him reflect damage. And then I believe it said every basic that he takes also reduces the cooldown from there. So that's why we saw him pop it at the start of the fight, and then by the time it was over, had already had it back. So couple that with the shell spikes on there. A lot of damage reflection that can come from PBM on a very low cooldown.
Yeah, but we can see that he's got that Sunder available as well. Got to imagine trying to get the bubble away from Genetics still could be the call, but you know, since that last play has happened, Genetics has gotten a fair bit tankier, especially the Compassion Kepri is going to help you out a ton. The Camelot Kings are grouping up here, and actually Variety's going to step up for the ward. They're not afraid of this fight. They're going to lose a little bit, and especially the bubble there from Variety is going to go down. So that's a little bit unfortunate there for the Camelot Kings. The Jade Dragons feeling confident surging forward for a bit. I have to imagine the bait will start soon, and here it goes. PBM's going to pull this EFG. The rest of the Camelot Kings got to find a way to defend.
PBM does get by the knockup from there. Now that we are at the Enhanced Fire Giant, this one very dangerous to let go to the enemy team. Means they don't have to worry about minions as much when pushing up into these structures. Still one tower left standing for the Kings, only 3 left for the Jade Dragons. The mid has been completely broken open for the Kings to run down should they take an objective. Only Genetics has his bubble left. Variety's still down for their 20 seconds. I imagine for the Kings, they don't want to start this fight up until Variety's got that back online.
Yeah, the blink's available, but no teleport for 90 seconds. Finally, once again, the EFG has started back up. I'm waiting to see what the call is. What's going to be the engage? Maybe a pull in? Is Genetics even feel confident? Actually, it's going to be Pagon's ultimate shot. He's gone!
Captain Twig erased from the map. A 1-2 combo from the mid laner of the Dragons. And maybe a little bit more. Netroid does get a bubble to help him out, but that means that Varieties is gone once again. Genetics goes in. The Fire Giant still being pulled by the Dragons. It's falling low. It's got to go down quickly. The Dragons get the Fire Giant. Can they get more? Variety stuck inside the Fields of Love. Barely able to get his way out, but Scream dives to the back line. Misses everything on Variety. It'll just be a one-man pick for the Dragons, but an Enhanced Fire Giant along with it.
Yeah, a one-man pick by one man. That was just Pagon alone that deletes Captain Twig. You would think the beads would be enough, the Pala would be enough. It did not come through with a teleport from Fine-OK. The Jade Dragons are going to siege into this right side Phoenix. Remember, this is EFG. They don't need the minions, but they'll wait for them all the same.
Root onto Variety. He'll try and zone the Dragons out, but it's 4 versus 5. A Heart Bomb hits Genetics. Down to a quarter HP on the bug. Not much defense left. Dragons will once again pull in BigmanTingz this time. The root from Fine-OK off the mark, canceled out, and taken down. BMT, the first casualty of the right side fight. Up on the Pow Lao, Captain Twig, how many can he pull? It's gonna be 2. That's a lot of damage, but it's a lot thrown right back at Captain Twig. Pagon, once again, doing the damage. Panda Cat takes down Genetics, but the health bars of the Dragons not strong enough to push into the throne room.
Yeah, I think Netroid's Odibo was a little bit too threatening there. The AoE damage was chunking down a few members of the Jade Dragon, so it's gonna be the right side Phoenix, and then possible mid tower here with the rest of the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat's gonna be down for 45. And some low health bars as well. I think the EFG is going to help a little bit with that regen. Are you feeling confident enough to go for the mid? Phoenix, definitely so. Only up against 2. Netroid and Variety just have to stay alive.
Well, the Cat and the Kappa both hit Netroid. He'll sustain up. PBM taking a lot of damage. Will push Netroid against the wall, who's lost almost all of his health bar. If not for that Whirlpool, he would have been as good as gone, just like the mid lane Phoenix. Only the left side one still stands, but it doesn't seem the Dragons are too interested in taking that one. They'll back away for now, waiting for Panda Cat to come back off death.
I mean, I'm just seeing some massive ultimate here from Pagon off of little to no setup. It's not like
keeps doing it, man.
It's not like, oh, PPM's dashing in, setting up for him. It's just raw dueling dragons to set up for these fights. Oni Fury should be going down unless Variety's got something to say about it, and he doesn't. But it looks like the Camelot Kings are trying to chase this down. They want to find a fight if possible. Not let the full reset happen here for the Dragons. Here comes PMD. It's going to be a true no lazy backing. At the very least, your red buff will not be going the way of the Jade Dragons. But 2 birds down. You got a little bit of time left on this EFG, a solid minute and a half. I imagine the Jade Dragons will have time to group up and left and go for that last Phoenix, but you got to look at the Relic situation as well. BMT will have both up in about 50 seconds, but for the time being, no beads available. You can see Scream doesn't have beads for about 50, but besides that, relatively healthy are the Jade Dragons. They're not too worried about this.
It's pretty similar on the opposite side, though. 2 of the 3 shells up, 1 down for 50 for Netroid, same with his beads on a 40-second cooldown. So Relic's in a pretty even state, all things considered, with less than a minute on the power play for the Jade Dragons. They'll start pushing up left side. They've got Oni minions in left and Oni fire minions in right. The ones in mid have already been taken care of. Camelot Kings can't let too many of these waves through, especially that enhanced fire wave. Luckily for them, Netra will be able to clear that one out. It'll take them quite a few shots to do so, even as a full build hunter. You can see how damaging that wave is. The Dragons are now grouped up on left. Only 20 seconds left on a Fire Giant buff.
Yeah, you'd love to just walk in here and take this, but I imagine playing it slow. That FG buff does run out soon. Variety trying to stall that one out. Blinks in.
Triple stun, but Sunder goes out immediately to push him away. Pagon will float on back. And there's not much of a commit from the Jade Dragons. Now with the Fire Giant wearing away from the whole team, not going to stick around for this left side Phoenix. They'll take their prize of 2 birds at the very least. And taking a look even just at the gold lead there, nearly 10,000 plus up for the Jade Dragons. Full builds coming out across the board for them.
Yeah, great play by Variety, though. Had that timer memorized, realized, hey, if I hit a big stun and stop the DPS, there's no way that the Jade Dragons are going to continue this siege onto our last Phoenix. And so just blinked in, got the stun, and stalled for the rest of that fight. Now EFG coming back up here soon again. Luckily, though, because that left bird still stands tall, no one from the Camelot Kings has to go all the way to that side of the map to clear fire minions. Right side Phoenix should be spawning up here shortly as well. So really, you're just going to have to worry about that midway for the time being, and BMT can clear that pretty easily with the honey. But either way, I mean, the Jade Dragons have been so dominant. Letting Pagon start the fight with an ultimate is going to be disastrous if the Camelot Kings can't watch out or juke it. With some good ward vision, throw the Kappa out. Just let us know, or the cat, I suppose, if Scream wants to do it, is let me know where anyone's at. And then Pagon just leads with the ultimate. That's been the call so far. We'll have to see if the Camelot Kings are ready for it. But for the time being, EFG touching down. And now that right side Phoenix just spawned back in.
I mean, Pagon has been playing as a pseudo frontline with this Yu Huang. Multiple times he's found dueling dragon pushes. Doug, I don't know if we have a stats pull. Can we see like just damage taken? I know we have a damage mitigated stat. But are we able to see damage taken? Because it feels like Pagon has gone unchecked this whole way through. Unfortunately, we don't. We'll have to take that maybe at later on. But you can see, look at that bottom of the charts. As far as damage mitigated, just means that he's not being focused at all. He's not getting any attention from the Camelot Kings, and that's a problem, Charlie, especially as we start moving in towards the Fire Giant. Camelot Kings, Captain Twig very far away from the fight, still waiting to close in.
Yeah, I think it's about the composition here from the Kings. Who's going to do it? You know, it's not Variety. Variety's not getting to Pagon. Captain Twig can't even exist that far back. And Genetics is a Khepri. So you're usually using that Scarab's Blessing to facilitate a dive or save one member of your team. It's just not working out that way. Scream go for the push, but actually it's a kill on a mic they're going for.
They can find it. They need a little bit more. His ultimate's down. He'll get pulled back into the Pal-Out. Thorns are popped to get some damage reflected back. But PBM is the first casualty. Genetics gets the revive on himself, but it's a quad knockup by Final K. Genetics in danger. Scream finds one. Panda Cat finds 2 of his own. That's 3 now for the Jade Dragons. It's only BMT and Variety left, and the Dragons can march themselves right to the Titan. It's going to be 2 versus 4, but Scream very low in HP. BigmanTingz and Variety can do a lot to slow them down, to stop this push. It's going to come down to the CC from Variety, the damage from BigmanTingz. Panda Cat, half HP, double stun, onto the carries. The Honey ticking away at Panda Cat's health. BigmanTingz has found 1. The Titan down to a 3rd. Can BigmanTingz find a 2nd? He can.
What?
That is another one down. The 2v4 is going to the Camelot Kings. They've repelled the Dragons.
I said Variety can't get to Pagon. Now he certainly can. Gonna find a possible kill, and those Dragons are not dueling anymore. They're gone. The Camelot Kings, more specifically BMT and Variety, keep this base alive, and now they're gonna charge down the mid lane. But a Trebuchet's over on left. I suppose that could come into play. The rest of the Kings have to group up and push down mid. It's going to be PBM versus the world for quite some time. He's got Sunder and Thorns, and it's real annoying to try and push into a Kuzumbo.
30 seconds till Panda Cat. 30 seconds, or I should say an extra 5 beyond there.
Get to the B,
Just to a Panda Cat. Look at the damage reflected back just by PBM. You can see the danger that the Sunder and the Thorns Shell Spike combo can do to one of these carries. But it's just PBM to defend against this Fire Giant. 7 seconds till Panda Cat. He's not going to get there in time. Maybe a teleport in by Final K if PBM can buy some time. Fire Giant, half HP, but PBM not willing to trade his life. The Camelot Kings hold back the Dragons at their base, and they get an enhanced Fire Giant of their own.
Okay, I'm not going to wish this on the Camelot Kings.
Okay.
But did you watch the set last night that the Jade Dragon just played in a situation very similar to this? When they were a little bit down,
Don't do that to
there
him.
was one Phoenix up, and the other team lost track of the Jade Dragons just for a moment, just for a bit. And where did the Jade Dragons go? Through the jungle to the Titan. You got to imagine the Camelot Kings saw that match as well. Yeah. And you can tell, look at the placement. Everyone's spreading out. There's wards as far as the eye can see. They're making sure that their Titan does not get backdoored here. It's got to be on their mind, though. It's so weak. So it's going to be not too easy for the Camelot Kings to push up. They can't just group up and go down left side. If they lose track of Scream for a second, that Titan dies. I like this call from the Dragons, though. Group up and stick together with no birds down. They really can play this not as frugally as you'd imagine.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons potentially now on the back foot. Just because Enhanced Fire Giant's so potent, it's double Hunter
They're going for
the
it, man.
Camelot Kings.
Look at the pathing.
The Dragons are going to try and set up, but keep
They're
your
going
eyes.
for it, I'm
There's
telling you.
There's a Sentry Ward right at the green buff.
Yep.
So they'll know as soon as Mike steps over, if he throws a Kappa that way, the Camelot Kings will know. Mike has just now been pinged.
Then immediately the back.
Everybody on the Kings going back to base now. Titan is at half HP. Mike and team has started up their back. A couple of them stopped.
Yeah, they know.
But now they've got to understand the Camelot Kings aren't there anymore. The Camelot Kings watched their game, and you saw they threw those swords out. They're not having any of that nonsense.
Yeah, they had on them right. Now they got to get out. Variety might be able to stop a little bit. The Kappa going to put Variety in combat, and a good route, grabbing that Magi's down from Variety. I kind of wanted to see the all-out brawl, you know, of just...
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Jade Dragons didn't realize that the Camelot Kings knew they were there. They tried to go for the back door, and then 5 Kings are just sitting there waiting. But Enhanced Fire Giant going to fall off in about 2 minutes, so plenty of time. This is what I was talking about, though. A full grouping on the left side of the map opens up Scream to do just this. Someone has to back because Scream ends. Captain Twig now goes back to base, and now it's a true 4v4 over on the left side of the map. With EFG, I do imagine Captain Twig should be winning that trade versus Scream. And might Scream, with the confident man he is, might just blink in here, and he's going to do it.
He will. Palo up. Scream does have beads, but he gets hit by all 3 chains. Ultimate will be used instead. So that's ult for ult from the junglers. Beads still up for the both of them, but neither willing to chase in. Phoenix has respawned, so Captain Twig will be able to allow his Titan to now heal up just a little while longer. Jade Dragons do get the Gold Fury, which will make pushes slightly more inconvenient for the Camelot Kings. Maybe not too much so there, but and Charlie, we're pushing 43 minutes into the game. We haven't really seen a true 5v5 Phoenix defense just yet. I mean, where do we find the breakthrough for either of these two teams to actually get back to the Titan room?
I mean, that's a good question. The last time, it was the aggression onto Mike, but then immediate answer back. There's plenty of damage coming through, but with 45 seconds left, the Camelot Kings actually charging down mid lane. They feel confident enough to at least try their luck for one Phoenix, possibly a soft push, but Genetics loses the Magi's before the fight even starts. That's going to be pretty unfortunate. I imagine it's just a soft look, not going to be a full-on commit. Variety actually blinks in.
Blinks in, gets the Pagon. PBM, though, losing a lot of HP himself as he reflects a good bit back over to BMT. Thorn's coming back up in about 30 seconds. Captain Twig into the back, Pal Loud, finds Panda Cat, gets the beats, fine okay, and Scream both ult, but Scream is low. The Odysseus bow is slamming through his HP bar, needs a little bit more, but Captain Twig steps too far forward to try and take both of them out. Variety yanked back in by the Dragons, but it's BigmanTingz to turn the fight around. PBM is now gone. There's only 3 Dragons left, but the Camelot Kings with their Enhanced Fire Giant now fading away will back off. They'll take their prize of the mid lane Phoenix in 2 kills and return back to base.
I mean, that was the call until you realize the wave's over on left, and now the Camelot can try to go for this left side Phoenix. Fine, okay, and Pagon gonna step up immediately. Remember, EFG is gone. This is not a Fire Giant push. With the teleport in from Variety, though, the Camelot King surge forward.
Makes it 4 versus 3. Pagon at half, Genetics low. Variety now taking up the top
He's
damage, and it's fine okay to go down. Pagon floats away as far as his little wings can take him. And now, with the mid lane Phoenix down, left side not taking a lot of damage until the Hunters finally focus up on it. It's 3 versus 2.
We've seen this before.
4 versus 2. Last time, Variety and BigmanTingz held him off. Can the damage of Pagon and Scream be enough? The Dueling Dragons do a lot of damage. The fire after BigmanTingz, though, is able to get it done. Not enough defense from the Jade Dragons, the Camelot Kings, to take game one.
Variety and BMT gotta be the MVPs for that Titan defense. I mean, the backdoor play almost came through once again, but the brains of the Camelot Kings, as we said, they watched that match last night and they said, we're making sure the ward vision comes through. We're not letting any cheeky backdoors happen. And again, that Titan defense from just 2 members of the Camelot Kings
Insane.
could not be replicated. Pagon did some good damage. The Dueling Dragons was not able to 100 to 0 BMT, and after that, the Titan just melted.
I mean, a lot of damage, I should say, coming through from the Camelot Kings between the bees that kept spreading through. BigmanTingz kind of got some free cast at the end of that little one. But this back and forth game, Dragons had a good lead, but it's the Camelot Kings who come out on top. We'll take it to a quick break. We'll get you guys set up for game 2 right after this.
Now, the Jade Dragons may have felt comfortable in the early stages of game number 1, but later on in this game, you're pushing 30, 40-plus minutes. The Camelot Kings able to thrive, all complete with a base defense as well, where it looked like the Jade Dragons were going to be able to close out this game, even a backdoor, I guess technically an attempt, but got spotted out by a ward. A lot of fun between the Dragons and the Kings here in game 1. Remember, not only a battle for top 2 to get into that second seed spot at the moment, but also a battle of the color purple on both of these jerseys. Jazzberry Jam versus what I'm calling Royal Purple in the Camelot Kings. You can sway the tides of battle at home as well if you head on over to shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL and pick up either a Jade Dragons or a Camelot Kings jersey, of course brought to you by our partners over at Skulls. So thanks to Skulls for helping supply our players and our fans with some awesome jerseys this year. And the battle of Jazzberry Jam versus Royal Purple will continue here in game number 2. We got to break down a bit of what happened in game number 1 first. And early on, Mifflin, it's feeling like the Jade Dragons are maybe in a good, comfortable spot, have a real good look at ending this game. But ultimately, a couple big plays from a couple members of the Kings turn the tides a bit, and Kings are now 1-0 up.
Yeah, it starts with a very contentious early game where both teams are kind of vying and jockeying for positioning around objectives. A couple of picks go to the Jade Dragons, but the Camelot Kings, by standard Camelot Kings nature, are able to keep their heads afloat through Greater Scorpions and neutral contestable camps just generally going their way. It was that first Gold Fury that I think that really set the pace for the Jade Dragons early on. The Kings had started it up and were not quite able to secure it. One of the strengths of Kuzumbo is his ability to just walk in and clear the way, and that's how it goes down. PBM just removes the Kings from the pit. The Jade Dragons steal that one.
It's defense.
It's a 2,000 gold lead from there. That's maintained the entire match. But as the game went on and on, the issue with the Jade Dragons draft was their ability to finish kills in defensive or offensive positions. On Phoenix Siege, actually securing some of these kills was very difficult. The single target nature of the majority of their CC, everyone but Fine OK, made it easy for Genetics to find a lot of value from these Scarab's Blessings. BigmanTingz on AMC was able to play really far back into his own Phoenix line, toss out Honey, find value from that for the most part, and then just focus on whoever's like right in front of him, right? Just,
My goodness.
I'm going to stinger a tank, and now that tank's not nearly as tanky as he once was. Whereas the Kings, once they got into their siege potential, by nature of having AoE CC from Captain Twig, were really able to just line up a couple of powwows and make it a little bit easier to close out the game.
Did kind of feel like a battle of the mid laners as far as KDAs go, and maybe damage numbers here as well. 48,000 for BigmanTingz, 42,000 for Pagon. Yu Huang had some great plays throughout game number 1. BigmanTingz ultimately just at more pivotal times stepped forward. That final replay, BigmanTingz untouched, walking forward, tossing out the stinger, spreading out the honey and the bees, and just walked at the Jade Dragons. Now, Netrioid does 34,000 damage here as well. And honestly, I think the Charybdis experiment, given Relic situation, worked out pretty effectively. Even in a losing state of the game, Netrioid was undying through the first half or so of this game. Only during the big team fighty brawls did things change. So the Camelot Kings, ever objective-minded, never let the gold. I mean, it was 12,000 on the base defense, but at that point, you're so far into the game, the items are pretty close. Never let the early to mid-game get so out of control. Not until later on did the Jade Dragons push it, but ultimately dropped the ball a bit here. So now the Camelot Kings up 1-0. I think the Kings had pretty good draft strategy. Again, if you're looking at how things potentially change given circumstances, the Khepri maybe makes some sense. You get a Khepri res, that looks really good. The Charybdis, a bit defensive. And then always AMC is a very, very strong pick. So, it's always this unique territory now for the Jade Dragons where you feel like you probably played a complete game for the first half, first 3 quarters even, just fell short of closing it out. So we'll see if the Jade Dragons adapt any of their picks and bans here. Miff still find themselves over in the first pick spot. Wonder if you have to look at the AMC here if you're the Jade Dragons.
When he's putting up damage numbers like he was, I think you probably just should. AMC is still very dominant, even in spite of a couple of nerfs recently. But with that said, I liked the Jade Dragons draft in the previous match.
Right.
Any game that goes the distance like that, I don't think you can put entirely at the feet of P's and B's, especially considering how many opportunities the Jade Dragons had to try and break the base. The only thing I might consider changing, and will be sacrilegious to Sprack and his fans, is the Bastet. I just don't think that Bastet was putting up enough. That's even in a situation where Twig really was pretty silent throughout the majority of that game. I believe ends it with about 17,000 damage. Those powwows in the late game team fights were just easier to execute on, and therefore were easier to find a little bit of value, whereas Sprack, if you missed that ultimate, you weren't really doing a whole lot. The DPS wasn't quite there. You weren't able to match up to what the backline of the Kings were doing. Imagine if he's playing like the Osiris, like he was previously in the last set, just able to run it down and be another frontliner with an incredibly strong frontline team already, or something along those lines. I think a jungle adjustment might be in the cards here for the Dragons.
Yeah, Scream went 12, 10, and 10 on Osiris in the Game 2 win over the Solar Scarabs yesterday. Did you see Gore? He tweeted, he was like, I go on vacation after tracking triple doubles. Hasn't happened in like 2 years, and the moment I go away on vacation,
Got to get rid of him more.
That's what PBM's dad said. He said, Gore, we miss you, but that was a lot of fun. So,
yeah, take a little break, bud.
You can stay on vacation. Could use one of those in a winning fashion here in game number 2 if you're the Jade Dragons for sure. And a sneaky Horus ban here. I wonder what the Jade Dragons sniffing out from the Camelot Kings. You know, Genetics very, very good at that pick. And in fact, beat the Bolts with it in 2-1 and 14 KDA fashion. In the last time that we saw this Camelot Kings team play. Maybe a catch-all type of ban there. Then the Emoja will not make its way through. The Morgan also takes a ban, so some good options here for the Dragons.
Yeah, the Dragons, I don't think are going to be too pressed about their support selection, with Mike going towards Mike picks, for lack of a better term. I think instead, maybe you concern yourself with the mid lane. Vulcan, pretty strong, seems to be the top of the mage tree with the Beads Aegis. Ruling recently could be a pick that you really want to keep your eyes on. Feels like AoE, massive just damage ultimates could find some value. Ymir, certainly strong as well, should bring you a lot of pressure in that laning phase. Surprised to see him prioritize as highly as he has been recently, but has been working for the most part for whichever team's locked in. The Vulcan, though, will follow very quickly. It's exactly what you expect, right? When Morgan's taken off the table, when AMC's taken off the table, just feels like Vulcan's that next god up.
Yep, Vulcan in a very, very good spot, especially when you pair it with the Daji. So Twig,
oh, where's the Hades?
still a bit quiet, can set up for Vulcan quite nicely throughout the course of this game. That's a really good look there, Miff. Hades tends to get banned out against Final K, really against a lot of teams in this league because it's just so disruptive. I mean, I think about game 2 against the Dragons yesterday for the Solar Scarabs, and Hades looked great for Scary D in moments where you thought the team fights might turn around. This Pillars of Agony just has that potential. And honestly, might pair nicely with what the Kings have as well. I wonder if the Jade Dragons, Myth, maybe feel or are considering you got to pick Hades here, or you're risking giving it over to the Kings as well.
I mean, yeah, Hades already has okay synergy with Ymir, the ability to just like toss up that wall, give you a little bit of space. You can walk in with the Pillars of Agony and not have to dedicate the actual leap. Very, very strong damage mitigation in the ultimate means that you're less concerned about like a Vulcan ultimate in return. It's still a really strong pick. Surprised that he doesn't go picked here. Final K, also one of the premier Hades in the league, decides not to reprise that mantle and instead Kleena locked in. Likely for Scream in the jungle.
Played it yesterday.
Has some pretty decent matchups here. 1,000 cuts from Daji, interruptible by Kleena. A little bit difficult to find situations where you're going to get the full value of that, though. If you're trading at the same time, Daji will get the majority of that cooldown off regardless. But having a little bit more objective DPS, always nice. You've already got pretty decent secure thanks to the Shards of Ice from Ymir. The Jade Dragons might try and play a similar pace as we had seen in Game 1, where it's match the macro, show up to the objectives, make sure it stays even for the most part. Whereas the Kings, I mean, this almost feels like just a blanket upgrade from Game 1.
Yeah, does feel very strong for the Camelot Kings. So you get the green team for the Jade Dragons with the Kleena and the Yuhuang. We'll ignore the Ymir just to keep my my trend going here. And then orange, yellow, reddish for all the Camelot Kings so far. And that's where the real analysis is. Icon, color synergy, very important, and the Camelot Kings riding with it very effectively here in game number 2. Kepri also very strong. I mean, Ymir already picked for Polar Bear Mike, so Kepri a near 0% chance to get selected by the Jade Dragons, but that second chance, though it took, 45 or so minutes to really culminate for the Kings, ended up being important a bit later on in securing some escapes and some revives, given the no beads and Aegis at the same time here today, and then Charybdis as well. And so the Kings kind of leaning into a bit of the both sides of how we thought picks and bans might get affected here, Myth. Both defensive options and offensive as well with the Vulcan.
You know, looking at the Kings draft, I wouldn't hate something like a Robin here. You can get the immunity to CC from the overhead kick, CC immunity to the ultimate, the ability to stick to that back line pretty consistently. You want someone that can really get on top of this Vulcan. Could be a pick that the Jade Dragons are considering, especially with some of the relic changes that we've had to put in place for this weekend. But with that said, standard picks also still very, very strong. You could have this clean up flex a solo lane, get yourself like an AoE CC jungler. We don't see it too often from Sprack, but Hun bots, I think, could certainly find some value here. Be able to stop the Daji on landing, catch the Vulcan as well. We'll see. Well, that confirms it. It is clean in the jungle. We've got King Arthur over in the solo lane. Haven't got to look at the King solo laner just yet, but King Arthur, a very, very consistent bully. I like this pick. Final K trying to put some weight on that lane and create some space for the rest of his team to scale up.
Now, Chernobog was played heavily by Panda Cat, and really a lot of the hunters in the league for a while. Even just a few weeks ago, I've seen one Chernobog in the last 6 or 7 for Panda Cat, a loss to the Leviathans at 5, 4, and 6 on that KDA. Scream's KDA changed heavily yesterday. Kleena went 0, 1, and 7 in the Game 1 win against the Solar Scarabs, and so a lot of assist pressure, but didn't see the kills rolling necessarily for Scream there in Game 1, and then Game 2 on the Osiris totally flipped. The ability to jump in totally changed how Scream was able to play. I wonder what type of Kleena we'll end up seeing here for Scream. And then Mulan. That certainly changes things up a little bit here, Miff. You know, Variety has loved the facilitator style picks with the RDO, Xingqian, Odin a couple of times, but also has sprinkled in Mulan, Tyr, those types of picks in a bit as well. Now Tyr gets banned, Mulan ends up getting selected, so it's not the Raven, but Mulan does have some of that CC immunity and the ability to mobilize a bit in these team fights.
Lots of backline die potential, very mobile, as you said. You can catch a Kleena when she's on the way out of a wall, or Yu Huang on landing from the Celestial Flight, so I think Mulan has value. My concern, though, is the Mulan to King Arthur matchup is very tumultuous for the first, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 levels until you get that second ability upgraded and get a little bit of sustain. The King Arthur will likely just win out on that bully matchup.
Yeah.
Could see maybe the Kings start to rotate Daji over towards that lane just to help out with the pressure that Final K is very likely to put on him throughout the early portions, but once you do finish up that upgrade on the second ability, Mulan should be able to hold her own just fine, and her rotations are still very strong.
Yeah, that's an aggressive lane. King Arthur versus Mulan. And honestly, what a lot of solo lane fans have written up, I mean, a fun matchup between those two types of picks. Two picks that, if snowballed, can really affect the backline in a lot of team fights quite effectively. This is a very important game, too, for the Jade Dragons, not only to stay alive in this set, but establish some closeout dominance over the Camelot Kings, where they had a really good shot at it in game number 1. Change-wise, though, Miff, if the tone I'm reading is correct, you're really liking what the Kings, even if some of the picks haven't fully changed, still got the Khepri, still have the Daji, you're really liking what the Kings are bringing here to game 2.
I will almost never root or vote against a Daji right now. I feel like that god brings so much value, especially on a weekend like this. Daji's certainly going to find some value as well. Into the matchups across the board, Daji and a Yu Huang. What's Yu Huang do once he gets dove on? He goes into the air, he lands, and for the most part, he's floating away from the team fight entirely.
Yeah.
Daji's got great gap close for situations like that. The front line of the Jade Dragons is a bit telegraphed in their initiation, so the yellow damage build for Charybdis should be pretty strong here as well. I really like what the Kings have brought.
Now, either the Kings are making a statement or the Jade Dragons are pushing us on to game 3. To find out which of the two we will see, we'll head on over to a couple of the most handsome casters I know. It's J-Mac and Trelly.
Oh, well, it's us for that. I could see the look on Mifflin's face, and he was like, it's not me that it's getting thrown to.
Wow.
No, it's J-Mag, it's Trelly for game 2 with the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. A lot on the line. Remember, this is the second half of the phase. These guys will only play each other this last time until potentially playoffs later down the road. Every single win. What?
He's taking the long con.
He's been going. PBM has been going through the enemy left side jungle this entire time.
Is he going to invade this speed buff?
Wait, is he actually going
He's
for
invading
speed?
this speed buff. Mike is cringe.
He's an animal.
I mean, let's just
Well, he's
let
a
the man
polar bear.
work. Let's just sit here and let.
Nope, not
wait,
speed.
no, he's on 1 speed. If he gets found out here, surely. No way.
No, wait.
What?
Oh, they spot him.
What's he
Wait,
do now?
So he just dies, right? I mean, he's literally in enemy territory.
No, he does
against
not.
two.
He's Ymir.
He just dies, right? He didn't steal the green.
What about the red though? He already used the carpet, so he's not going for the red steal. Oh, he's going to purple.
God, I love this.
Get it from Genetics, Mike.
Look, I just love this. I'll honestly say I do miss the invade meta from a few seasons back. It kept things interesting, such as this, where you have a support literally running through the jungle. Problem is,
see you late in 5 minutes, Mike.
see already one of the slowest gods in the game, and now he's moving even slower with invaders. He's practically crawling through the jungle.
It's just great to me that he did the long con over to speed. Just said hey to Captain
Took
Twig.
a lap around the map.
Yeah, went over past the Phoenix. We haven't looked at literally anything else on the map because we were just watching
cares?
one Freezy Boys trek throughout the map.
One ice giant. One gentleman ice giant to trek the map through. But now as we kind of do get to take a look at how things changed up, it actually has shifted up kind of with this invades. It really has shown that it's shifted up the dynamic of the starts for teams. Now we're seeing the mid laners start back at green buff on teams that know they're getting invaded. We're seeing the junglers meet up in towards the mid lane and over towards the left side more often now with the Scepter. A lot has changed in these last couple of weeks, not only because of the Scepter, but because of invades. Maybe, though, a chance of some big kills here. Captain Twig silenced out. The Whirlpool finds 2 with the knockup. Mike is low, but the meditation is there to keep them alive. It's Scream now fighting back in the middle of 3, but he's losing a lot of health. Aegis now burned away by the cleanup. Mike is low. One more hit from Netroid. First blood goes to the Camelot Kings.
I mean, I hate to say it, but if Mike was level 2 there, like maybe he doesn't die. I mean, I could tell that the idea was to, ride the early HP of Ymir as well as that meditation, but he's level 1. He has 1 less ability, half the abilities of everyone else, so was not able to really help out the team there. Great root, good damage there, and now first blood going over to the Camelot Kings. I do understand the value of stalling out that clear and getting Panda Cat ahead, but I imagine the death was not exactly what the Jade Dragons were looking for. Either way, Mike is still on a very dynamic character. The Ymir is really good in the early for just setting up for plays like this. Walk up, freeze, get some good pressure in lane, so it should be sitting just fine. Besides that, though, Captain Twig getting this dodge G back. That's going to be pretty difficult to deal with, especially with a bit of a lead getting that assist. Scream opted to go for the Aegis start, so no beads. You have to quickly get into the wall whenever you're in fear of getting pulled by that powwow, and it's not easy to do. It does take a little bit before you're actually able to go to the wall. So if Captain Twig's on point, falls around Scream, could look to get active in that 1v1.
Yeah, especially since it is Aegis picked up by Scream, so no CC immunity for the first, pretty much the entirety of this game for Scream. So it's going to be a very difficult matchup for this Kleena into this dodgy. As you say, will be depending on the safety of the wall in order to try and bail him out of some of these trickier situations. But then over towards the mid lane, seeing this Vulcan come back, it was banned away in game number 1. Now it makes its way in towards game number 2 for the Camelot King. So not running the double Hunter composition that they had prior, instead now adding this big burst magical damage over for the Camelot King. So a slightly different look for BigmanTingz in game number 2. Maybe a pick on towards Variety, picked up. And waiting for Scream on the bottom end. Dash is there. Variety, little more Bluestone from Fine OK is what deals the final shot. And the Jade Dragon's now on the board.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if Scream would lead with the the silence at the end of that ultimate or how the damage would come through. But the Bluestone and an Archer shot were able to make sure that Variety goes down in that situation. Doesn't have teleport up anymore after getting channeled there. So it's going to be down for a little bit after that wave gets cleared. Whereas Final Case 50 seconds away from the teleport, you have to imagine would like to back for a full sovereignty as well, as Variety was able to. So not going to be the biggest deal. Was a dash in from Captain Twig. I'm surprised that we're not seeing just the Palo being used. I guess doesn't know that the Aegis is still off cooldown there for Scream. It comes up in literally 3 seconds. So now it's not a good 1v1, but would have been at the time. Either way, though, great rotation over to that side of the map to try and clean up. And just a good opportunity for Final K to hold that charged ultimate until right when Scream shows up, take up Variety. And that'll get you out a little bit, but not going to be enough to delay the first kill of the game for the Jade Dragons.
Really does feel like, just because of the nature and the past of this Kleena, that we're kind of looking at like almost a Giannis 2.0 situation, where when we talk about Giannis players in mid, it's how often are they sticking by a wall, how often are they kind of making sure they have that safety to drop the portal, get themselves a pretty good distance away. I think that similar conversation then does come up for Scream for how much he's going to be sticking towards these walls, especially when Captain Twig is around. I imagine as soon as Captain Twig comes by, if he even sees the Palau being partially channeled, we'll jump in just to stay away.
Yeah, certainly could be the call. Pandacat did use the Nightmare to get over to the left side of the map just to use as a pseudo teleport, try and get there as quickly as possible. Didn't want to miss that wave. Purple buff's up, but I don't think Pandacat wants to go for the solo invade, especially with that ultimate down. So probably a smart call just to retreat in that sense. But, you know, I'm still looking towards these junglers. You can see Captain Twig rotating over for the Totem of Ku. Not really looking for fine okay here as long as that charged ultimate is available. Not going to be too worried about a Palau either. So I imagine, you know, just looking for as much farm as possible until you're able to force something over on that right side of the map. But it's been consistent left side pressure here. Scream, looking at Genetics currently, a very tanky bug. Probably not going to net anything. As Pandacat throws out some, I don't know if I'd call those laughs. It was a laugh. I know it was a laugh. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I'd call it a laugh. It's a caw, if you will.
Take a call at him. Root onto Captain Twig. Phoenix fire damage goes in. Scream makes it into the wall just in time. Dueling Dragon slam Captain Twig. One more shot for the Dragons. Jungler will pick the second kill for the Jade Dragons. Maybe one on Genetics to pick up by Final K into Shards of Ice to the bottom end. But Big Volcanol will clip two of them. Genetics on the run with his own revive. Should get the distance to go away. Final K is tanking up this tower, but needs to get away because now the whole team has shown up. Not enough damage from Variety to get the pick on towards the King Arthur, but the grapple will pull PBM right back into the range of the turret, and BigmanTingz will take him down.
Yeah, Final K diving really far for that one. Pandacat makes the rotation over, barring a grapple. Should be just fine. Completely out of mana in that regard. The grapple is off the mark there from Variety. But it's all right. Scream is going to go cover that wave over and right, so shouldn't be any more of an issue. But Genetics is also going to try and steal away some farm. So a 1-for-1 trade, now it's sitting 2 for 2. With the gold a little bit in favor of the Camelot Kings. And by a little bit, I quite literally mean 100 gold. It is not that big of a deal. So very even game here for number 2. But build-wise, I definitely think that BMT comes online a bit earlier than Pagon in this situation. Just Book of Thoth, you're getting benefits pretty much the second it's finished. Of course, you want the flat pen, but Warlocks takes a bit longer before you actually start, you know, getting the benefits of that item. So I think as far as the team fight goes, the Jade Dragons probably looking a little bit worse at the moment. But XP, I didn't realize, Captain Twig, 2 levels down to Scream in the jungle. That's going to really start to add up.
Well, Twig tries to get the ball rolling, but PBM pretty tanky between the picking up that Benevolence early, Mail of Renewal, and a Meditation. It's going to be very difficult to kill this Ymir a second time around, now with the Mail of Renewal online, but Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings did this in game 1. It didn't go well for them that time. They've got Secure this time around, and they will get the Gold Fury. Wall by Mike to block off Genetics. He'll eat the freeze. Maw will only stun. Scream. Genetics able to dash away, but he's being body blocked. Gets the revive off, but the Khepri is good as dead. A 1-kill swing for the Dragons, but an objective for the Kings.
Yeah, how many times has that happened last game where it was the Camelot Kings pulled something, they lost Genetics? At least last game, they didn't even get the Fury. This time around, they were able to confirm that Fury for themselves. But still, that is going to put the gold pretty even in regards of nothing. It hasn't changed much, honestly. The J-Dragon's still going to be a little bit behind, about 200 gold. That Fury helps for sure, but, you know, just not going to be worth so much. I got my eyes on that Pyromancer cooldown. 1 minute away from spawning in on this side of the map. We see Scream, once again active, 3 levels ahead of Captain Twig. I mean, are you even afraid of fighting a level 7 Dodgy? I don't imagine so.
We definitely didn't want to go toe-to-toe with him for that time. Even was starting to eye his way towards the wall, but didn't end up getting in time. Just ate about a third of his HP in poke from the burn that Captain Twig had put out there. It was a battle for Totem of Ku that kind of started that one up. Genetics in the mid lane, wall off by PBM. But he'll be fine. No further follow-up from Pagon, who's also been able to get a little bit of a lead in that mid-roll where it was 2.5 levels up for Scream versus Captain Twig. It's been about a half level that Pagon's been able to amass over BMT.
I'm curious to see, you know, maybe I would have to ask Genetics, because Mike's upgraded the Cloak of the Ascetic. He wants that CDR. Genetics went for the knock-up meditation. Some extra peel and setup for his team. I'm curious the interaction he's looking for. A very free Pyromancer here for the Camelot Kings with help from that turret. But there's not too many channeled abilities that you'd be wanting that knock-up for. I guess just some extra peel for himself. SMITE might just want that, and you know, it's one of those things that you don't expect. You don't expect to get knocked up when there's a Khepri around, so
you know,
maybe that's the call.
You know, Khepri's always saying, you know, get off of them, you know,
Yeah.
to peel for his team. Now he's saying, get off of me to peel for himself.
But I imagine he's also saying get off of them. You know,
Could be.
He could dash in, get a massive knock-up, and then the rest of the team is like
He's always
chilling.
looking out for his teammates. Sometimes
Yeah.
you got to look out for yourself.
And maybe just also trying to get some of those Magi's down from last game. I mean, trying to set up for Captain Twig could be the call. There's a lot of different plays to be made. I just know the cooldown meditation, Cloak of the Ascetic, just brings so much to the table. That's why we see it upgraded so early. But the next going for something different. We'll see if it pays off for him.
We'll see if the Spice can help him out. Camelot Kings are up slightly in gold. Genetics does get found out inside the jungle. Doesn't use that med this time. Just holds on to it, recognizing not enough damage from Scream and PBM to go for a kill. Now at Netroid here, a fight over the Scepter will go for the Camelot Kings. Root hits Scream, but he'll be able to dash far enough away to not be affected by it. Camelot Kings, with that Gold Fury, with that Pyromancer, have about a 500 gold lead early on, though XP seems to be a little bit back and forth. Pagon lands down from his flow. Captain Twig puts pressure on, but his beads are gone now for Pagon. Palau is good. Vulcan Ultimate only hits PBM. Dueling Dragons will slam through Captain Twig. And the Genetics with nowhere to go makes it a double for the mid laner, the Dragons.
That's going to be a big ultimate. I just noticed during that fight that Pagon got a meditation of his own, the beads and the med down, as well as pretty much every relic on the side of the Jade Dragons except for Panda Cat's beads. We're currently down at the moment, but a great answer to what seemed like a decent engage there for the Camelot Kings. The issue is this Scarab's Blessing is not going to net you that much. Scream and PBM are rotating over, catches the grapple from Variety. The ult's going to come through, but how long can you dive this Mulan? Not at all.
No.
PBM doesn't even want to step in, not with this build, just the Mail of Renewal. Not going to make you that tanky, especially up against that tier 1 tower. But, you know, gold-wise, still in favor of the Camelot Kings, despite being down 3 kills. They've been farming the map very well. And when Panda Cat flies away, Netroid gets a tier 1 tower over and left. He gets a free farm. So that's not going to help out the gold as of now, but still the fight around the map certainly has been looking very solid here for the Jade Dragons. 1 level lead for BMT, though. Actually, Pagon just ticked over some, let's call it half a level. Besides that, the XP not looking too worse for really anyone.
Captain Twig setting off one of the trip mines within the wall that Scream placed earlier on. Now it's zoning by Genetics to try and keep PBM and Pagon out of the lane. Won't keep them out for very long. I mean, you saw a little, and I mean how little damage Variety took in that last fight. We'll see how much Fine OK can do on his own. About 40% HP taken away from Variety in the 1v1 tussle against the King Arthur, but I think you're right to say maybe not willing to commit to a dive on the left for the Dragons, maybe a commit to the Oni Fury by the Kings or the Dragons, as PBM takes a good bit of damage. The Camelot Kings not going to stick around for the objective. Once the Dragons showed up, they seem to go ahead and back away. Variety will get some good damage. Scream doesn't make it to the wall. And BigmanTingz the Earthshaker now. Captain Twig up in the sky on the Palau will be able to pull in at least Fine OK. But that's not going to get very much. And the Dueling Dragons find some damage, need a little bit more. Captain Twig makes it out. Camelot Kings don't lose anybody in the fight.
Yeah, getting that pick on the Scream is massive, and the Scarab's Blessing didn't seem that necessary, but also it was a bit scary how much damage Captain Twig was taking on that Dodgy, so better safe than sorry in that situation. The Camelot Kings have shown that they are totally fine with dropping the turret and pulling an objective, even when it doesn't look that clean. Pyromancer went down a bit ago, and now the Oni Fury has been pulled once, and possibly twice if Genetics does decide to make the call. And it looks like Netroid is here for the DPS. Turret goes down, and the Camelot Kings are going to start up. I think the Jade Dragons, they're very much aware this is happening, and they just can't even go for it. I mean, Mike looked at the Fury and was like, we have no burst to outburst the BigmanTingz. Even without Earthshaker, it's not going to be that easy. So it looks like a possible free Oni Fury pull there for the Camelot Kings. And like I said, the kills certainly still in favor of the Jade Dragons, but the farming across the map, Panda Cat consistently rotating out. He's been getting assists and stuff, but that tier 1 tower is certainly helping out.
Yeah, Variety's also been able to make some very early rotations to this team fight. You saw the one to help get the pick on a Scream, set up for BigmanTingz over in the mid lane. and kind of allow the captain, or not the captain, the Camelot
Captain
Kings.
Twigs.
Allow Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings
Well, as you
to
know,
really kind
Captain
of keep
Twig
this,
is his whole
afloat.
team.
Yeah, he is the team, if you ask
Captain
him.
Twig and the boys. That's what that's their new
That's
name.
what we're rebranding them to now. It's Captain Twig and the boys. But no, the Camelot Kings been able to stay afloat in this early despite the aggression that the Jade Dragons have been able to throw out there, getting these objective pulls, actually securing the objectives this time around, being able to get that early Gold Fury, then that Pyromancer follow-up. Much more in line of what we kind of expect from the Kings team.
Yeah, and that's the kind of playstyle they want to go for, right? They showed that even in game number 1, that's what they wanted to do, even when they were down, even when they didn't have burst. They were pulling Pyromancer, they were pulling the Fury, and they just wouldn't confirm it. They would die, and they'd be like, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's try it again. And they would just go to the next objective and do the same thing. Didn't really work out. They were still down a bunch of gold, but hey, I mean, they got the dub, right? If that's the case, and then it worked for the 45-minute game. I imagine same sort of plan, but now they're actually confirming those objectives. Their late game's probably gonna look pretty solid.
Yeah, instead of trying to, come back from a 10K deficit, maybe they can try and find themselves a win 10,000 gold up this time instead. Maybe try and go for the flip, or maybe it just ends up being the Dragons find a win somehow, 10,000 gold down to get these Camelot Kings. But as we start kind of pushing through this earlier game, that first Pyromancer's already gone down. Now the second Fury that has spawned in is where the Camelot Kings have put their eyes to. And I think you're right to say that PBM wants to get in to try and stop that one, but realize he doesn't really have the backup, not really having the resources behind him to try and get up there and stop that one.
And I haven't seen the knockup med used once. I mean,
I'm still waiting for that too.
I've got my eyes on the cooldown. There hasn't been like too many brawls, but I just want to see someone just get booped by a Khepri. I've been keeping my eye out
It's
for it.
pretty good now.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I just want to watch it, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's just the fear. And that could be something that we're not considering. Like, I want to die, but Janex is going to knock me up, and I don't want to get knocked up, so I'm not going to die. That could be it as well.
Could be. Honestly, I'm surprised when that relic kind of got introduced at the beginning of the year. I thought we were going to see like this massive, like a wheelish meta pop in because it works for her. You're able to get that pop through. You have your support just blink meditation, throw somebody in the air, have a wheelish jump in. Heck, even have a wheelish pick it up. Why not? Just have some fun with it. But haven't really seen a whole lot of it. We'll see if Janex can make any use of it in this game, whether it be for self-peel for himself or maybe some peel for the rest of his team.
Yeah, and at the very least, I just want to see it used to see how effective, because
use it.
we rarely get to see it in like competitive play. You know, you see it in like your casual Clash games and your Slash games. I can't believe I just said Clash. R.I.P.
That's an old one.
Yeah, Slash
R.I.P.
games, that sort of thing. But I just want to see how much it can actually bring to a competitive standpoint. But I think the Jade Dragons have shown that they are not afraid to get aggressive, despite, I mean, it's not even that big of a gold lead, right? They've still up in kills. I think it's 5-3 at the moment. They're still trying to find these kills. They're still trying to find these fights, but it's been a little wishy-washy just farm-wise. And again, I think that's sort of just what Chernobog brings. Like, again, whenever Panda Cat flies in, you're like, oh no, there's a fifth man here. We didn't expect this rotation, but Netroid's like, I'm cool with this. Like, I get free farm. As long as you guys don't lose like that hard, I can get some itemization online. I should show up to the fight a little bit ahead later on. So the Charybdis, with also extra safety, brings some quick farming.
Yeah, it really has been able to take away some of these safety points. The tier 1 tower on left side has been taken away because of the team fight that happened all the way in mid. Another mid lane fight happens, and Netroid's just casually sitting there farming up, saying, all right, guys, just let me get to late game. Let me get my build online, and maybe we'll be able to take these guys out. Apologies for the delay. We are trying to get sales back into the game here, just taking a little bit of time in order to get to that point through there. But in Camelot Kings, currently sitting, again, 500, maybe 600 gold up at this point in the game. Not very far. Not really a lead per se, especially when we're sitting kind of anywhere in that sub 20, that 15 to 20 minute mark. Not really what you would consider a lead at that point, but still keeping the objective minded. And that's something that we kind of talked about at the start of the day with the Camelot Kings is they're not a team, we talk about the Dragons being a team that loves to fight early, but they love to fight the enemy team. They love to PvP as
They don't like to fight objectives.
They like to fight people, but the Camelot Kings also like to fight early, but it's the objectives. When the Scorpions are first spawning in, they're jumping on top. We're seeing in this game 7-minute Gold Fury pulls, which is something that was kind of unheard of up until this point. I mean, we were going back even a couple of weeks, maybe even at the kind of the start of the phase into phase 2. Nobody's really pulling Gold Fury like pre-12 to 15 minutes. And here's the Camelot Kings now going for their second one at 12.
I mean, that's just the rise of, Vulcans and AMCs. Those mid lane characters that aren't just burst traditional mages. They also bring a little bit of extra DPS. Like, the Hives help you traverse over towards those objectives. AMC just has great burn, as well as the Vulcan turret. You just put it down, objectives burn through. So I think that's just the reason we are seeing that. As you can tell, the Fury did go down, and Mike and Panda Cat, they weren't able to step up to it again. BBM looked at it and said, no, we're not going in for that one. So the Gold Fury goes down. And now about 1,000 gold in favor for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, Kings able to grab that objective, no contest from the Dragons. to try and be able to get there and steal that one away. But Scream, even despite all this, he's been able to maintain a decent little lead over Captain Twig. That's been the story pretty much since level 7 or so of this game, where Scream has been up 1 to 2 levels the whole time through. But that gap is starting to slowly close its way through. No longer that 2.5 plus gold or experience lead that Scream had prior. Captain Twig, kind of strange to me, Charlie. No cooldown in the build. Has gone for everything except for the Jotun's Wrath within that Mace Tree.
Yeah, this has been the new wave build of just all red items, Transcendence Heartseeker, but I think on Dashi in particular, it does feel much nicer when you can pal out off cooldown, especially with getting those beads down, but I imagine just wants a little bit of extra DPS. Scream is going to go into the wall, and for my money, just the objective should stop in that regard, and that is the call. The Pyromancer will be reset until Scream's out, and then a pretty easy burst there to the Camelot Kings. Not only grabbing that Fury, they'll get the Pyromancer after the fact, but this time, Netroid is the one who rotated out of the land, and Panicat was able to push down some farm. So that's going to help out a little bit. Both tier 1s down and left, but besides that, the rest of the towers are standing tall. I have to imagine no more brawling for the time being. I mean, there's not too much to fight over. Primal Fury will be up in 3 minutes, but besides that, no team's really looking too powerful enough to go for a Fire Giant or anything like that. We're still, level 16 is the highest on the map. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was just back to farming, which, you know, definitely suits the Camelot Kings playstyle. Considering the itemization, where Panicat doesn't even have that kin size online, I imagine the Jade Dragons also not too upset with sitting by and getting some more gold in hand.
Make sure that your carries can get some of those crucial items online. You see Scream and Pagon clearing out the right side jungle. Blue about to respawn, so FinalK can have his buff. But as we kind of stagnate at this point in the game, Charlie, I mean, it's very clear by the Kings playstyle, and not for lack of their trying for the Dragons to get the fights going a little bit early, but it does feel like we are slanting towards a little bit later of a game once again, whether that be 30 minutes, whether that be 40, 45. Is this a composition that the Dragons have drafted, one that can square off against the Camelot Kings once we get to these late game team fights?
It certainly can. I think that Scream in particular is going to have to watch the positioning of this Kleena, just because, you know, the safety is there, and I know Scream likes to get real aggressive and look for those backline fights, but with genetics on the Khepri, you know, if you're letting one of your kills get res like that, it's going to be a little bit unfortunate, and you're committing a fair bit of space to try and get to the backline. But I imagine if Pagon's playing like he was last game, I mean, they could have 4 warriors in Pagon, and I'd still be like, yeah, their late game's looking pretty solid, because this Yu Huang is able to absolutely one-shot if the combos are connecting. So just with that alone, I imagine not going to be the biggest deal. You can see a couple of the Camelot Kings are rotating over to right. FinalK wasn't quite able to grab that tower. And since we've been talking Primal Fury, a minute 30 from spawning in, you have to imagine the Camelot Kings going to get some Sentry Wards and possibly prepare for an attempt on that. As Captain Twig made the rotation over the tower, still goes down, so FinalK is able to score some gold for the team.
You saw the look, that immediate 180 from Captain Twig is like, aha, FinalK, maybe I can go for a, you know what, maybe I don't try and fight a King Arthur who's 2 levels up over me, a level up over my solo laner. Tier 1 probably in danger, but Tier 1 goes down anyways. And I think you're right to bring back up Pagon, because last game, you know, it was a point that got made was the fact that Pagon was the lowest damage taken / damage mitigated in the lobby. Yep. He was sitting at like 4-0 and 4, 30 minutes into the game, essentially untouched for the majority of it. It wasn't until we were finally able to see Variety get to the backline and actually put pressure on Pagon that we saw that change up in the team fights for the Camelot Kings. You imagine it's got to be the same thing for them this time around.
I do. It's going to be difficult, though, Mulan. I mean, you've got one very telegraphed dive. It's going to be the blink in, hopefully a grapple, and then you're ulting. And if that doesn't work, you're kind of in the backline, right? There's no easy way for you to escape. And also, talk about mid lane matchups. FinalK has a much easier time diving someone like BMT, you know, like, it's not to say that the cripple field matters, because it doesn't anymore on the backfire, but more specifically, your knock-up immune in your spin, you're able to chase down Vulcan so easily. If Genetics is committing the abduct to try and stop that, it's going to put himself out of position. But the rest of the Camelot Kings are going to group up over on the left side of the map, get the Oracles first, and then go for the pull onto the Primal Fury. It won't have the turret, it won't have Variety just yet. The teleport was charged over to mid lane, I imagine, waiting for that Mulan before the siege begins. But there is a Trebuchet in mid that the Jade Dragons have sent out. I think Variety's going to deal with that first.
Variety and Big MT will group up and take care of that one. So no real objective push by the Dragons in the mid, but they are at least able to pull the Kings away from the Fury, as that could have been number 3 that they, at least for the Camelot Kings, they could have been able to pick up. And that's number 3 within 20 minutes of play. Again, not something that's very common up until just recently, now that we have been seeing some more of these Vulcans pop up, now that we've been seeing some changes to the Gold Fury itself to make it maybe a little bit easier to grab there. Been seeing maybe a little bit earlier focus play towards it. Magi's picked up 2nd item for Genetics this time around. We saw this.
He said, I'm not getting frozen sundered anymore. I'm done with that.
Well, good thing is there's no Thorns to reflect some of that damage back to someone like BigmanTingz, who could get a lot back. Genetics finds the pull on towards Mike, who is just stuck nowhere for the Geist Giant to go. And a Fire Giant picked up, or pulled, I should say, by the Camelot Kings. Panda Cat's not coming yet. Does have ultimate, but he's working on the tower. Final K goes in. Fire Giant still low. Has not been secured yet, but the Camelot Kings do grab it. Dueling Dragons slam Genetics once again, and now that Panda Cat has joined the fight. It's a support for support trade, but that is one the Kings will take, so long as they can grab that Fire Giant for themselves.
Yeah, getting that Fire Giant is massive. Mike just not able to live at the forefront of these fights. You could see tried to freeze Genetics, tried to cancel out that abduct, but just not enough. And now the Camelot Kings able to back up. A little bit down in gold currently, but again, that Fire Giant is going to help them out a ton. It seems like the Jade Dragons are looking for this Primal Fury. They're all going to walk over a ward on the way over. And actually, Scream seems to be going around, possibly looking for that Indrasceptor before the fight even begins. Panda Cat possibly going to go for the pull, but you got to have Final K here to tank, and PBM finally does make it back to the fight. Look at Genetics, so far away, currently in base. Not going to be joining anytime soon. I'm also looking at BMT's cooldowns. Earthshaker going to be back up real soon if they don't burn this quick.
Primal Fury, half HP, teleported by Captain Twig, finds Final K and Scream. Vulcan ult will not hit anybody this time around, but Scream does not get to make it to the wall. It's a kill for Netroid, and maybe one more onto PBM. He finds a freeze on only one, but it's BigmanTingz with the kill. The Fury still stands, but the Dragons are on the run. Triple root from Pagon slows things down just for a moment, but it's just enough for the Dragons to escape.
Yeah, unfortunate Variety was not able to connect with anyone on that grapple, but the Primal Fury should be the consolation prize. I mean, when you kill 2, that's not a consolation prize, but still, they want a little bit more. The Camelot Kings chased down deep into the green buff, wasn't able to grab it. But still, there's 5 towers up here for the Camelot Kings to try and grab, with only about 2 minutes and 15 seconds left on the FG buff. I can't imagine they're too worried about the push. Their fights have been pretty clean. It seems to be look at the tanks, try to kill whoever's level 14 first, and then move onward. And with Genetics having that Magi Shelter as well as Scarab's Blessing, just a little bit safer than PBM is currently. The meditation is just not enough to keep this Ymir alive at the forefront of these fights. But Camelot Kings are going to group up and head towards it. Looks like the right side of the map where that tier 1 is still standing over in solo.
Has Genetics used it yet?
He has not. I've been watching.
We are 23.5 minutes in the game, and Genetics has effectively nullified an entire relic slot by not. Do you think he accidentally bought the wrong one, walked out and went, oh, well, I guess I'm just not going to use it and prove a point?
I mean, I don't think so. I think he wanted this knockup for a reason, and he hasn't had to use it yet. That would be my guess, because the fights have been going well. I mean, the Camelot Kings haven't been in a position where they need to retreat and defend. Of course, Genetics died, but popping the meditation wouldn't have solved anything, I suppose. So the tier 2 tower over and right goes down. Scream and Fine OK, nowhere to be seen at the moment. The Camelot Kings see the back. I imagine they're going to retreat as well. But currently, sieging forward. There's 3 towers still up, and they're looking at this Phoenix.
Unfortunately, they're facing off against the Ymir, and PBM does what all Ymirs do in that situation. Throw up a wall that lasts eternity, and there's not a whole lot the Camelot Kings can do because of it. They'll back away from right side Phoenix. Instead, work towards some of these other towers still standing on the map. Tier 1 and 2 still alive in mid. Tier 2 in the dual lane could be split off towards as well. But it's only 30 seconds left on this Fire Giant buff. The Kings are fishing for a fight, but the Jade Dragons, surprisingly, are not going to be the teams to try and give them that fight.
Yeah, I mean, losing your tier 1s and your tier 2s here aren't going to be the biggest deal. The gold lead is going to start to stack up, but everyone's already level 20 except for PBM, so I don't imagine, actually Scream's still level 19, so would love a little bit of extra farm in the meantime. Either way, I didn't imagine it would be any much of a fight, and actually, Fire Giant's gonna run out here, so that tier 2 tower in mid is still gonna stand tall. The siege never came through, so a successful Fire Giant here for the Camelot Kings, but I have to imagine the Jade Dragons also happy with how that went. It could have been, it always can be worse, right? When you lose 2 and there's FG, you imagine your Phoenix is probably going down, and none of those Phoenixes were even really looked at. So certainly could have been worse. Now we're gonna see the full-on reset. Fire Giant should spawn back in here in 30 seconds. And with that, a lot of power spikes to come. A few starter items I imagine the Camelot Kings are looking for. Netroid opts to go for the Death's Embrace, just wanting some extra healing with that Charybdis. And Captain Twig does take over to level 20. You'd think a Protector of the Jungle or a Seer of the Jungle coming here shortly as well. And it seems like Seer of the Jungle is going to be the call, so Captain Twig picks that one up as well.
We do see meditation upgraded now for Pagon. He's fully gone into the cooldown meditation just like his partner PBM has. So a lot of potential ability resets during the next big team fight. Not even so much for the healing, but just for the amount of abilities that could be spammed through. Bubble still maintained by Genetics, the root just off the mark for Pagon. But it's the Kings with the aggressive position around the fire. Final K blinks in, finds BMT. Bede's gone instantly from the Vulcan, and now Variety caught on the wrong side of the wall, but will be revived and brought back to the rest of the team. Meditation still standing for Genetics for the time being. A dive into the backline by PandaCat, but PandaCat is just going to help isolate Genetics, who finally pops the meditation, but it's too little too late for the bug. The Camelot Kings lose their support.
It knocked up PandaCat's dash. That's all it did. So interesting, but doesn't really matter at this point because now the Jade Dragons looking for a beautiful ult once again. Pagon's deleted Captain Twig, and this Fire Giant's going to go down for free.
Fire Giant to the Jade Dragons. Credit for the guaranteed on that one to Pagon. The animal on the Yu Huang. You can't keep giving this guy this god because he has proven time and time again that he is an absolute menace with this mage.
Yeah, and it's always Captain Twig. I mean, the Dajit just is not able to get away from the dueling dragons. You'd think the beads, the palace, something would come through, but the damage is just a little bit too crisp, and Pagon's too quick with it. Now the Jade Dragons have a chance to try and cancel up some of this gold lead that the Camelot Kings have built for themselves. Still 3 towers total, 2 tier 2s for the Jade Dragons to try and grab. But it's just been back and forth as far as the fighting has gone. At the moment, the Jade Dragon's certainly in favor of this fight, but the Gold Fury spawned in. No group up around that. A bit of gold in hand, though. I mean, you can see that PandaCat can certainly upgrade that starter item if he wants, or could sell it for dominance. That's something we've seen a few times. I don't think I have much of a preference in that arc, but it looks like we'll actually sell it. Actually, last game, I did see him get a Magice in that slot. He's thinking real hard about this one. I'm curious, what's PandaCat going to do?
He's wondering. Looks like he ended up going for
Griffin Wing?
Griffin Wing. This is
He's
an
even,
item
look at him giggling. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I went for something a little. Let's see. You know what? I'm not going to roast it. Let's see how it does.
40 power, some attack speed, MP5. Most important thing on it, make sure auto attacks go just, I can't even say a little bit. 40% is a pretty considerable increase of speed. We'll see if it works out for PandaCat.
Let's see how fast these things are flying. Come on, PandaCat, start
see.
on.
That's pretty good. Look, I won't lie. It's faster.
Who put the turret in this game? I thought Vulcan had one, but I can see PandaCat's the turret now. Those auto attacks really flying out. Tier 2 in mid goes down. Tier 2 and right still available, but Jade Dragons don't have their eyes on that. They're more so looking at this left side Phoenix. Going to be hard to try and siege into. I just think BigmanTingz has a ton of damage. The turret is going to be quite annoying, but one good wall from PBM could be disaster. BigmanTingz doesn't quite have that Phantom Shell just yet. Not quite upgraded, so a good wall placement here from the Ymir could certainly be disastrous. Scream in the wall could also be disastrous, just chunking half the members of the Camelot Kings. Not going to get too much, but now the siege is going to start slowly.
Root hits Pagon. He throws his own root out, misses Captain Twig with it. Those autos are flying from PandaCat.
Oh, yeah.
They're going so fast. 0-0-5 at this point. Hasn't been able to find a kill this game. Found a few last time around. Been hurting my fantasy points by not getting some of those kills out there. PandaCat help up a little bit, but We'll see if he can get any in this team fight. Immediately, Final K finds Captain Twig, forces the pal out early. But who can even pull in? Just Final K, a full collapse, but Scream turns it around and makes it at least a 1-for-1. Final K does go down. Vulcan Ultimate slams into Pagon. And BigmanTingz gets the second kill for the Camelot Kings. Canopy a third. The Maul from Netroid to try and find Polar Bear Mike, who has left himself alone. There it is, BigmanTingz, double kill for himself. Kings have found 3.
And now the Camelot Kings have the chance to try and push up here. EFG not going to be spawning in for a while. Fire Giant buff still on the Jade Dragons for about 30 seconds or so. Just on 2, Scream and Panda Cat. I was curious what the Camelot Kings would do at this time. It looks like running it down mid is the call, at least trying to grab that tier 2 tower. But man, the 5-0 Vulcan BigmanTingz. We've been talking about Pagon a lot this set. Definitely can't keep him out of the conversation. But BigmanTingz, massive Earthshaker there. Able to delete this Yu Huang. Looks like that tier 2 tower will go down. And I imagine just a full-on reset, right? Looking for the enhanced Fire Giant. That's got to be the call here for the Camelot Kings. You got to be happy with how that defense went. And Genetics gets himself a speed buff as well. So just all good things here for the Camelot Kings.
Hey, use the meditation again. That's 2. Med count in the last 5 minutes is 2 more than it was for the first 26 minutes of the game.
Again, I saw him cancel Panda Cat's dash with the dash. I mean, with the med, so that was something. He still died, unfortunately. But, you know, I'm not entirely sold on it, and Panda Cat is not sold on the Griffin wing because he immediately
got rid of that. Wow.
It was one. He got to be the turret for 1 back and then said, all right, forget that. I'm going fail not now.
Immediate swap up from the Hunter of the Jade Dragons. And as this game pushes into this 32-minute mark, gold dead even, experience doesn't matter. It's both supports at level 18, everybody else level 20. We're at almost as even as a game as you can get, even the kills matching across the top. 9-9 for the 2 teams. And with Fire Giant spawning in just a few seconds, enhanced Fire Giant at that, could be the objective that breaks this game wide open for either team. All Phoenixes standing, only 1 tower each still up on the map for both of these teams. And it's the Kings who have the offensive play around the Fire Giant pit.
The offensive positioning definitely in favor of the Kings currently, but that didn't really help in the last fight towards Fire Giant, so we'll have to see who's going to step up first. Again, Phantom Shell, topic of conversation. This time BigmanTingz actually has it. So if Mike gets a good wall, not going to be the biggest deal, but Variety, immediately, that's got the Jade Dragons get it though?
Scream? Did he steal that away with a tick of the veil? Jade Dragons now on the run forward. Captain Twig pulls in Scream, who's got to dash away. The Aegis is already down. This Cleaner cannot make it to the wall. In goes Panda Cat, diving in with ult, but Variety finds him, takes the beads away. And now Final K spinning as far as he can, but the Dueling Dragons once again setting things up. BigmanTingz, as soon as he comes back, is shut down by Pagon. Genetics gone. It's a kill for Panda Cat. And immediately into the whirlpool they go. Captain Twig tries to join the fight, but there's not much that he can do. Netroid and Variety, the last 2 alive. And keep your eyes on Variety, who has made his way to the back line. Big poke with the spear thrust, but not enough to answer the kill. Pulls in Pagon.
Huge.
And Netroid closes that one out. Polar Bear Mike goes down. It's only Panda left alive for the Dragons.
That was a massive play there by Variety to teleport in behind. Trying to chase down Panda Cat is the call. No mana on this Chernobog as long as the grapples hit. I'm assuming Panda Cat goes down here. The ultimate's not going to be there. 1 grapple comes through. That's all Variety needs. Or the ultimate. That'll do it as well. And this Chernobog should go down, barring some crits. Variety almost falling in that situation. So Scream steals the EFG. The Camelot Kings say we don't care. They get the wipe. And Netroid unfortunately uses a Relic of Base. Either way, you get the situation where EFG's gone. So you're sitting there, and now it's a full reset. I mean, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, puts us back to a total even state yet again, where it was, what, 500 gold between them, basically still at that exact same point. There's a complete reset around the objective, and in all honesty, Charlie, could have just delayed the game for another couple of minutes. I mean, the Fire Giant power play still up for a couple more, but there's no Fire Giant buff on the map any longer. Everybody from the Dragons have lost it. So the Kings will take the next logical step and grab the Oni Fury, which was the only objective. Still alive at the end of that one. Pyromancer was taken just before Fire. And Camelot Kings could maybe start the push-up now. Oni minions start to push up on all 3 of these lanes, none of them enhanced. 1 tower still standing. Camelot Kings can at least take advantage in that regard and take the last tower off the map.
It does seem to be the call. You saw Genetics trying to get a Trebuchet. Wasn't able to confirm it just yet, but one more offering will do. Last tier 2 tower for the Camelot Kings to grab. Finally will go down here, but this is not an enhanced Fire Giant push, as you mentioned. This is just the Camelot Kings wanting to get that last bit of gold off the map. Not quite full build for everyone. There is certainly some upgrades to be had, especially looking at the supports. PBM would love that extra item, and Genetics would also like upgrading that Shoguns and then one more item as well. But besides that, I mean, upgraded relics for just about everyone. We're 35 minutes into the game. It's about to be 3K pot, 3K elixir time for both of these squads. But the Fire Giant's it's gonna be another minute 45 before it spawns back in. I mean, you hate to see it. Just a clutch steal there by Scream. Because if the Camelot Kings get that, I imagine they're starting Phoenix Siege just about now. Because Netroid and Variety would still have that buff. But not going to be the case, so now no one gets that enhanced Fire Giant. And now we see a grouping here by the Camelot Kings over on the right side of the map, possibly waiting to see. Someone has to clear this Oni wave. And when they do, the Camelot Kings are going to try and set up an ambush. Final K is not the best target, but it might be the only one they'll get, as the rest of the Jade Dragons are playing this carefully. Final K is going to step up, but not too far, knowing there could be someone lurking in the jungle.
Not sure if he may have spotted the edge of one of the characters or not. Surely somebody just spotted Netroid through the wall there. Camelot Kings are going to wait around. At this point, they've got nothing to lose. No threat on any of their towers or phoenixes. No threat within the jungle.
They're looking everywhere.
They're literally Jade Dragons are the ones who are a little spooked now. They're like, okay, where the Kings are they gonna pull a Dragons on us? Maybe a collapse for the Kings. Panda Cat, first one spotted, will dash away. Veil number 1 from Scream. Doesn't get a whole lot of value there, just deters the Kings from pushing forward. But it's still Fino K and Pagon standing around. They won't get much there, and the Camelot Kings can reset towards fire, which is going to be down in just a few seconds.
Yeah, I wanted to see one of those grapples connect just to see if a fight would break out at the red buff. Once again, the grouping around the corner here for the Kings. Final K has the Magi's bubble, so he's not going to die immediately. This is some CC. And actually hot steps the root and the meatball, so he's going to keep that Magi's for the time being. But because the Camelot Kings had the pressure, the vision, certainly in their favor for the time being, as his enhanced Fire Giant finally touches down. It seems like 5 minutes ago we were watching, but Frenzy gets popped, it's gone!
Fire Giant doesn't even get to stay on the map long enough for the Dragons to respond. Scream the first one up. Dragons pull in Variety, who gets stopped from his grapple, but a clutch revive from Genetics brings him back in. Can Scream and the Dragons find the damage, find the gap close? No, they cannot. The Camelot Kings with a clean enhanced Fire Giant grab. They'll walk away, all 5 with the buff around their waist.
I mean, yeah, they used Frenzy and some ultimates, but they should be able to get a full-on reset there. You can see the Jade Dragons were trying to go deep into the jungle, stepped over many wards doing so. So the Camelot King's not going to fall for that one anytime soon. But a possible grouping on the right side of the map, maybe looking for this tower. I mean, what are we in a base race position here, the Jade Dragons? I'm not sure what the call is, but remember, they're on a ward. They don't know it, but they are. Final K has told the rest of the team that there's 5 members all right here waiting to try and fight into an EFG. Camelot Kings looking much stronger in this fight currently, maybe just waiting for a Scarab's Blessing. Once Genetics Salt is back up, they'll be fighting at full strength. Now it's time to retreat. The Jade Dragon's going to head back onto base. Trebuchet getting sent down the left side of your map. That'll help out with the siege. But remember, this is EFG. I see a 3K pot in the inventory of BigmanTingz. I mean, if you get even clipped by that ultimate, you're getting 50% of your health gone. And if you're a carry, you might just die.
So the Camelot Kings will group up down mid, start pushing forward with their minion wave. Though with enhanced Fire Giant, minion wave not necessary. So we see a couple members split towards the left. They'll leave Variety by himself in mid, but a turret from BigmanTingz in case things go a little bit south. BMT throws Meatball over the wall, doesn't find anybody there. This awkward fanning out of the Camelot Kings, but they're not committed to one lane or the other, kind of spread through the jungle, will now start to group themselves around this mid. Genetics, the only one not really within range immediately to get into the fight, but can dash over early. Camelot Kings, Charlie, I'm confused as to where they're trying to get this fight going.
It seems right now just waiting. I mean, now that the trebuchet comes through, usually the play with these DFGs is tank for your trebuchet and let it start wailing away, but it looks like the Camelot Kings are just going to let it go. They're playing almost as if they have a Horus, you know, where they just wait for a wave ult in, but they don't. They've got a Khepri, so that's not the call. Looks like Variety is going to get blinked on here by Final K, but that Phoenix is almost gone immediately. Just look at the HP there. That's the EFG for you. You don't need minions to do that much damage.
BigmanTingz, he'll back himself away, at least for the time being. Some good damage that's coming out from Scream on this Kleena. It's a lot of sneaky damage that can find its way across the board in that regard. Variety versus Final K on the right-hand side. Variety can walk in and start trying to deal with this Phoenix. Final K is having none of it. We'll get the ult to go. But left side bird is equally in danger. Captain Twig
Oh my
again!
goodness!
Pagon has done it time and time again this game. But this time BigmanTingz returns the favor. Pagon gets a kill on the Netroid. And now PandaCat to the backline, 1v1 against BigmanTingz, and that one goes to PandaCat, 3 down on the Camelot Kings. It's only the tanks left alive. Last time it was Variety and BigmanTingz to fight off against 4, but now they got to fight against 4 with just their tanks. The Jade Dragons have once again pushed back, but they lost 2 of their Phoenixes during all of it.
I mean, Variety's going to be able to teleport out here. No more CC. Actually, there is a little bit of CC eventually. Final K might just be able to kill here, and with that, that's got to be GG. I mean, they have enough DPS. There's no way Genetics with EFG alone is going to be able to stop the rest of the Jade Dragons from stepping up. You got 30 seconds without Netroid, 20 seconds without Captain Twig. It's all about the stall game here.
Final K will get the kill on the Variety with the slam down and should be able to join the rest of his team
12
as
seconds.
soon as it's through. 11 seconds till Captain Twig. We've seen some big saves in the past. The Dragons have got to do it here. Pagon, PandaCat gets pulled back by the Khepri. 2 seconds on Captain Twig. He has spawned in immediately, has access to Pal Out, but Pagon has found 1. Captain Twig goes in, finds a Pal Out onto 3, pulls only Pagon in. Is there enough damage with Netroid to hold this one back? Pagon's still alive, dashes in, and needs a little bit of assistance. Netroid stops it. It's another base defense by the Camelot Kings.
And Final K's right there. Is he going to go for it? He kind of has to, right? Final K not going to go for it. He's going to back up. Look at the HP on that Titan Pagon. The up down, the AoE autos, none of it was able to confirm. Oh, look at this though. How are you going to stop Scream? It is so difficult to stop a Kleena from making this call. If Final K tanks and Scream gets to that Titan, it is GG. I'm taking a look at the relic. Scream has the blink. It is not going to be easy, but BMT and Netroid know he's coming.
Not sure if that ward spotted him.
Here he
Final
comes.
K looping one way, blinks past. Scream goes in with him. BigmanTingz throws the ult, but it's too little, too late. The Jade Dragons took him a second surge to go through, but they take game number 2 and push us to a third.
45-minute game 1, 43-minute game number 2.
So 41 next time by that logic.
You know what? Stop picking Daji. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Captain Twig's been getting 100-0 by Pagon every single time. I don't know if it's he can't Pal Out in time. I don't know what it is, but it needs to stop, right? Like, or ban Yu Huang. I'm down with either, but that's.
I think that might be the call.
Yeah, how many times has it happened now? It's got something has to change
I've
because
lost count.
Pagon has been popping off, and unfortunately, just the defense is just not there.
I've lost count how many times Pagon said this game. I ran out of fingers on my hands to count at this point. Somebody has got to get Pagon off this Yu Huang because he is an absolute menace on this god. Too many times has he 100-0 players. Too many times has he been allowed to get away with it. The Jade Dragons take game number 2. We'll move on to game 3 right after this break.
It's the game 3 that was promised between the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. Game number 1 goes the distance. Game number 2, we're getting towards a similar length. This time the Jade Dragons able to close things out, not without a little pushback from the Camelot Kings. That base defense, like 2 or 3 separate times, just miraculous from the Kings. Ultimately, just a bit too much, though, from the Jade Dragons. They bust down the door, and they grab themselves a win here in Game 2. Myth push us on to a game number 3. Good to see the Dragons put one in after maybe what they would consider a dropped ball in Game 1. Little speed bump here or there here in Game 2, but still able to get the win.
Yeah, these games are so absolutely back and forth that it's hard to like look at one specific moment and say, yeah, that's it, right? Like this is the issue that happened. The Kings may have dropped the ball a little bit on the very last siege of the game, getting caught out across the map. It looked like the strategy was just have Variety grab that Phoenix to the right-hand side, then back out. But if that's the case, playing a little too far forward on the left. The Jade Dragons, though, I think deserve every bit of credit to having put themselves in the position to defend there, having put themselves in the position to actually take some fights up against the Kings in those siege situations. Because when you look at the draft from the Kings, that siege should have been pretty easy to execute on. Captain Twig on the Daji with the displacement, Variety slowly working his way through that right Phoenix on his own, BigmanTingz with these massive ultimates, so strong. But at the end of the day, I think individual plays need to be highlighted on the side of the Jade Dragons. Pagon has a phenomenal performance throughout this entire match. Some of those dueling dragons completely either one-shotting somebody or displacing them so that somebody else could do the last 5% of HP that remained. Panda Cat finding a couple of great kills as well. Polar Bear Mike separating a couple of those engagements very well too. Just great Smite. I mean, legitimately.
It was very good Smite, you're right.
If you're a Smite fan, it's easy to gush over games like this.
Got me really excited for Worlds again. I don't know. I constantly keep talking about it this time of year because everything runs up into it. But these types of games later on in a tournament at Worlds with fans and all the big bassy sound and all that is just a whole different world. So it's a fantastic game to be able to watch currently, but also gets you excited for some teams matching up a bit later on here this year. Pagon, 37,000 damage. That's top in the game and able to really close things out here. Right, good for the Camelot Kings to have some pushback there. But the turnaround from the Jade Dragons was a bit too strong and knocked down the door. Now, I do want to clarify potentially some confusion in chat. The current ruling with Beads and Aegis is that because of an interaction between the two, players can choose Beads or Aegis. In the event that a player at level 12 gets the other, in this case Netroid picked up Aegis at level 12, not allowed to use it in any type of meaningful situation. So if you saw Aegis on cooldown for Netroid, he was using it in moments where there was no fighting going on, just to keep it on cooldown, just to keep it out of the actual fighting that was going on. So that's the ruling here for this weekend. Has changed up picks and bans a little bit, and ultimately unfortunate for Netroid here in this game. Potentially made a difference, but we go on to game number 3 nonetheless after the Jade Dragons close things out in game number 2. Now, Myth, pick ban-wise, I suppose we've seen some differences here today given our circumstances, but a lot of the popular picks still remain that way. Kepri's been really prioritized alongside Charybdis for the Kings up to this point. Now bouncing back after a game 2 loss for the Kings where you're able to make some really nice defenses, but felt like you were on the back foot for a good portion of the end of that game. Wonder if they end up sticking with, now with the pick priority swapped here. Still go to that Kepri, still go to that Charybdis, or maybe it's time to change things up.
I'm not sure, man. It is so
working, right?
difficult when games go the absolute distance. If any match that crosses that 40-minute threshold, it is small incremental changes that you're looking at in the draft phase that might give you an advantage. Because if you're able to get to the 40-minute point, and where both teams have had opportunities to knock on the door of the Titan, where both teams have had opportunities to attempt their siege, I'd argue that both team compositions operated well, and it comes down to play on field at that point. So if the Kings want to go back to a same style of draft that we've seen in the previous 2 games, I wouldn't argue. I think it looked good throughout. If the Jade Dragons find themselves in that exact same position, I wouldn't argue. I think that their drafts look good throughout. Maybe slight changes here or there. I would say that the performance from Captain Twig so far on the Daji has been a bit more quiet than you might hope, especially considering how late these games have gone. I believe averaging about 18 to 20,000 damage between both games so far. Maybe get him on something that's a bit more standard in his wheelhouse, and if the games are going late, team fight ultimates kind of come to mind, and when I think of Hun bots, I immediately jump to Captain Twig, so maybe a pick that he could start looking towards in this phase, but I don't know. Daji's super strong, so getting practice on it certainly valuable, and he very well could just have a good game where he pulls a lead and absolutely dominates. So I don't want to leave that off the table for the Kings, whereas the Jade Dragons, on the other hand, that last draft just seemed to work really well for him.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in 2 games here, Daji has gone 3, 11, and 15 for Captain Twig. So the assists have been there. Kill pressure not so much, and has been punished off that powwow a good bit of the time, especially in game number 2 at 2, 7, and 10 KDA in game 2. And so it's left open with Cupid and the Morrigan taking a ban yet again alongside a Cthulhu. So not only are you not getting a Cthulhu in general, you're also definitely not pairing that with a Morrigan for a double Cthulhu comp for the Jade Dragons.
Fire in the hole.
And Vulcans looked good. Look, where Pagon really tore things up on Yu Huang in both games. Even in game 1, Yu Huang looked fantastic. Game 2, 6, 3, and 9 for Pagon. BigmanTingz on the Vulcan in a loss in game 2 also looked really good. That was a fun mid lane brawl that we've got at 6, 2, and 5 on Vulcan mid. Hard pressed to find many better picks for BigmanTingz in the current meta.
Yeah, normally if it weren't a mid lane selection immediately for the Kings, I'd argue we'd probably see like a Khepri Yu Huang here for the Jade Dragons, but with Vulcan locked in, I think you can wait a little bit on your mid selection. Pretty unlikely that the Kings take it for themselves, so maybe you look towards the Soul Lane matchup. Hades, very dominant. Fine, okay, very good on that pick. Has seen a lot of priority in the SPL. Could potentially be like a Khepri Hades here for the Jade Dragons. If you so choose, maybe you could take the Charybdis now and make sure that the Kings aren't able to get it for themselves. The Dragons have certainly got some opportunities and some options, which is why they're taking their time on this pick. The Kings, though, pretty easy to evaluate what a Vulcan brings. Earthshaker legitimately shook up the game a couple of times in the last couple of matches. I mean, the ability to legitimately delete somebody, so valuable.
BigmanTingz has gone 31 and 8 in the last 6 games.
Really?
KDAs. A lot of assists alongside that as well. So the Kings mid laner, even in a couple of losses in that stretch, has looked really, really good, as he has all year long, and in the last couple of years, BMT been one of the top mid laners in the league for sure. Hades plus Pele for the Jade Dragon, so initiation and setup for fine. Okay, we know what the Hades. Now, I suppose it could be mid lane as well for Pagon. We've sometimes seen the Hades go there. But Myth, this pick has largely been banned out against the Jade Dragon specifically, and fine, okay, we'll get his chance.
You know, when you said this could be going to the mid lane and you hadn't said which god it was, I thought you were talking about Pele almost for a moment.
Also could be Pele.
And I agree, man. The versatility of this Jade Dragons draft is very high. Pele has got decent matchup in a Vulcan. It's very difficult for Vulcan to self-peel against Pele. The Volcanic Lightning, the ultimate from Pele, having a little bit of CC immunity once you connect with your target means that meatball on your feet doesn't exactly work all the time. You probably need to take one of the auto attacks before you're able to self-peel. We've seen Pele up against immobile mages in mid pretty often. Generally, Ven comes to mind as a guy who's willing to pilot that style of pick. So whether or not the Jade Dragons are willing to take it there, I think we'll get a little bit better look at it as the draft starts to round out. But otherwise, the Jade Dragons have essentially, now with this Ardio lock-in, kind of reprised a similar playstyle to what we had seen in Game 1, where it is an incredibly steadfast front line that is going to WQ you with a standard assassin in the back and probably just some pretty nice artillery damage to flank it after the second phase of bans. Whereas on the other side, the Kings, I like this, man. The Horus opens up the macro game a little bit more so. You can group up on the Gold Fury, then threaten Fire Giant at a moment's notice. You can group up on one Phoenix, then immediately threaten the other. And then the tier as disruption is very strong. If Hades decides to blink to the back line, he needs to channel the Pillars of Agony immediately or he's going to get Fearlessed away. Or if it's a jump in, it's very telegraphed. Tier can peel in that situation as well.
Obviously, you think about Deathwalker's play and how near perfect that was. 4-man Fearless instead of 5, but even in moments where it's just a push of 1 or 2, Tier's so good at just causing chaos because the communication lines have to be so on point, especially if it's the carries who are being dove in the back line. So while you might not be getting these big home run, highlight reel, best play ever type plays on the Tier.
You might, though.
You might, but even just controlling a couple at a time, Myth, it's a fantastic look for the Kings and definitely the potential there for variety on this pick. Ishtar now locked in for the Jade Dragons. 63% win rate, Myth, across 8 games. We've gotten a decent amount of data on Ishtar so far and performed maybe just above average.
Yeah, I've turned around on Ishtar. I think that god is very good, mainly for kill pressure. It is 2 facets of Ishtar's kit, and it's 2 different versions of Ishtar that you're going to see throughout the game. In the early, imagine we see a whole lot of the lob auto attacks, goes over walls, AoE on minions, generates a lot of pressure, has a little bit more damage. I like to equate it to like a standard Heimdall auto because of the bonus damage you get from the lob. Makes it very difficult for anyone to want to box or stand in lane. So she pressures not only minions, but she's also threatening HP damage the entire time. And then when you get to the late game, it's, hey, I'm an Odysseus bow Ishtar who can snipe you from further than you can snipe me, and I'm proccing the yellow damage throughout the entirety of the team fight, restricting blinks, restricting all sorts of mobility. So I think she finds a whole lot of value. And it does actually match up well with what the Kings have drafted. You want that cripple to deal with the tier, to deal with the horse, to deal with the Hou-Yi. So Ishtar's ultimate first tick, applying that, means that she can self-peel a little bit better, and then the Ardio flanking it means as long as Ardio is around, this tier won't be the major disruption factor that we're used to seeing.
Now, Myth, I feel like we've got to talk about Poseidon, because when we talked about the status of Beads and Aegis this weekend, where players have to choose one or the other. Oftentimes it's been the Beads. Saw a couple Aegis. Aegis is in game 2 there.
A guy.
just one.
Just one of them.
We wondered if Poseidon, Kukulkan, insta big damage delete style ultimates would see a rise in play. Didn't see him in game. I suppose Vulcan's been around, but Poseidon specifically hadn't seen up until this point. And so I think Poseidon probably in a fine spot anyway, Myth, but maybe receives a bit of an extra boost here, given the circumstances here this weekend. Do you think Poseidon matches up nicely into what the Kings have?
I mean, I think so. Do the Jade Dragons have enough CC that it's going to force you into a Beads? Maybe a little bit less than I would have liked to see the Kraken lined up with him, or the Poseidon rather. He's an old bot in my mind. I'm going to call him the Kraken. But when you look at what the Camelot Kings have brought, they've got answers without Aegis. If anybody is nearby and a Kraken's dropped on a wheelish, feather step to immune it. Even if you're crippling the Vulcan because of the changes to him, he's backfiring out of Kraken range every single time. Right. If you drop Kraken on Vulcan, barring a stun or a fear or a silence, there's not really much you can threaten on your own. So the Poseidon is going to be very reliant of the CC of the gods around him. He's waiting on a Pillars of Agony. He's waiting on a fear. He's waiting on a knock-up or a stun from Ardio or something along those lines to really line it up. But I'm not going to mince words. Obviously, when you don't have access to damage immunity, things like Kraken are just going to be a little bit easier to find.
Now, could have access to damage immunity if that's what the Camelot Kings choose. Remember, it's one or the other, so it could be an Aegis, could be Beads. Now, the previous 2 games, Myth, have gone 40-plus minutes each, so I think you got to be looking later in the game here for Camelot Kings versus Jade Dragons, 2 teams that have matched up quite nicely later on, created a lot of great storylines here so far. Do you think 2 compositions that can compete with one another late in the game?
In the absolute latest portions of the game, I might favor the Jade Dragons, but it's a lot of play on field, man. It really comes down to who's playing at their best.
And we've had some good play on field in games 1 and 2. Let's find us a winner. Camelot Kings, Jade Dragons, game 3 with J-Mac and Trelly.
Thank you one more time to Dulcin and Mifflin for breaking it down on the desk. 45-minute game 1, 43-minute game 2. If history's any indication, Charlie, we might be seeing the deepest depths of game number 3 with these 2 teams in an immediate battle right out the gate. As Scream was in a little bit of danger there. Group up by the Camelot Kings to get things started, but not going to find a pick. But do manage to get the blink away from Scream. First 2 minutes of the game, he'll be without at least that offensive capability.
Or defensive capability in this case, I suppose. Able to blink out of trouble. But, yeah, this one's been intense, and I do like the composition the Camelot Kings have went for here. A bit of a change-up. They've got, once again, PPM went for the long contract over to, he didn't go from speed buff this time, I suppose, but just trying to slow down. Yep, let's do it. And he's this time he's a freezy girl. It doesn't matter though. He's playing some ice character and he's going in trying to go for a little bit of annoyance and slow down the buff clear here for the Camelot Kings. It's what he's been doing throughout this entirety of the set. But either way, you know what? I kind of want to see if he steals it. Okay, he didn't steal.
No.
He blanked in to be annoying. I like the composition switch up here. I like the tier for variety. I think the knock-up style of composition with Captain Twig on the Aegis could certainly be some benefits. Every character in this game actually has a knock-up on the side of the Camelot Kings, so we'll have to see how easy it is to try and set up for them.
I see. Yeah, you're right. Now's the perfect game for Genetics to get the extra meditation.
And he starts Frenzy,
But
man.
he goes Frenzy instead. Could have had one more tool for a knock-up, or at least to try and help out Captain Twig, but this time around, Captain Twig has plenty of tools in his own regard between him and the rest of his team to be able to successfully get someone up in the sky, yank him back down in. And even onto the opposite end there, really, at least for FineOK, has to be a little bit more careful with that dash of his own. Can get pulled there by the Awilish. I think this is a nice composition for Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings to try and maybe find some flourishing with this Awilish.
Yeah, certainly could be. This time around, Scream likes to rotate over that Interceptor, but Captain Twig joins as well, jumping in. Hard the Camelot Kings.
By Genetics. But it will be the Camelot Kings who do get the Interceptor. We've been seeing this a little bit more often now. These 3v3 skirmishes that usually we reserve a 3v3 for mid, but has been happening in duo multiple times now. Variety gets the beads away from FineOK. Those will be down for a little under 3 minutes now off a good push there. Could be a prime target for Captain Twig to make his rotation over towards that lane.
Variety does have Blink. I was curious to see if you'd try to go for a kill, but of course on Hades, you're just full healing off of the wave, so no more pressure over towards solo. In duo lane, however, PBM, this is what Horus brings to the table. A ton of lockdown and pressure early, as long as you're able to follow up with that ability, with that damage. It seems like Netroid has been doing that so far. Top damage in the game with those Hoi ricochets. Purple buff spawning in here shortly. A triple bounce would help with the confirm, but certainly not a guaranteed invade. With both junglers being on the right side of the map, it looks like it'll just be the duo laners going for that possible aggression. And also considering the fact that Hoagie just doesn't clear the wave very fast up against the Ishtar and the RDO, it's going to be difficult to try and go for an invade here, but the Camelot Kings are going to go for the pull. Netroid just wants the minis, actually, and is going to get out. I was going to say, didn't line up a bounce in the slightest, just hit the minis, said we'll take those and get out. Going to be a little bit of extra experience and gold denied there from the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, well, he took him all right.
Oh, he
and he got out.
Yeah.
He made it away. Rotation now for Twig to the right side of the map. FineOK, I believe he has used his dash already. A push against the wall. FineOK does have ultimate to try and fight back into this. Is there enough damage from the Awilish from this tier at the moment? The answer to that is no. Captain Twig has given up on this pursuit. The minions doing a lot of damage back to Variety. BigmanTingz jukes out the crack and gets hit by the Whirlpool. No first blood drawn from either team yet.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Kings, just level 5, so difficult to try and kill that Hades. Beads are down for 60 seconds. I suppose that could be a regank opportunity with that ultimate down, but just weren't able to find it. Getting the beads down on BigmanTingz as well. Going to bring some value. Pagon had a Kraken for it, but certainly worth it in that regard. And neither one of these junglers have been able to hit level 5. Scream actually just ticking over, so getting access to Volcanic Lightning. Could see some aggression coming from the jungler of the Jade Dragons. One ult tick here would be sure to put BMT in the dirt, so running back to the tower, probably the smart call. Without the beads, just the ult slow into knockup would be disastrous here for BigmanTingz. So smart to just to back up in that regard, but Scream not going to give up. Wants to sit around just in case.
You think if FineOK doesn't hit 5 on that minion wave to get ult, that's a kill onto the Hades, or you think that it didn't matter that he managed to take over at that level? Hold on, though. BigmanTingz collapsed on in the mid lane. Quick blink by Scream, and PBM as a combo puts the mid laner in the dirt of the Kings.
Yeah, that was a good play there. Obviously, the blink into cripple. Beads are down, or not cripple, the stun rather, and then lining it up there for Scream to hit that ultimate and not enough HP to try and live through that one. With the mitigations from Pillar of Agony and FineOK's dash down, yeah, that's a level 4 Hades I imagine would have went down, or at least had to burn the beads in that situation. But didn't happen, so we don't gotta continue talking about it, because FineOK's sitting just fine over in that solo lane with the timing actually flourishing. Hits level 7 to Variety 6 currently. And this is what Hades brings, right? Insta clear on the wave, insta confirm on your own blue buff. You're farming so effectively. Full Book of Thoth already finished for the Hades. And then look at Variety. Just sitting here, has to auto every minion 12 times just to try and clear the wave. FineOK goes 2-3, done. All right, I'll see you later. I'm going to go get more farm in the process.
Does manage to get Book of Thoth online, so going towards the power. PBM throws down the cripple field instantly, so Captain Twig doesn't get a lot of value.
Whoa.
Variety Blink Fearless off the mark. We'll turn around towards Final K instead, who's found 2 inside the Pillar of Agony once again, and a Kraken on top. Will be immune away by Captain Twig, but still too much damage on the follow-up. Jade Dragons have gotten 2 kills to start this fight and could be aiming for a little bit more. Blink is up for Scream. Variety misses the blue stance combo. Scream gets knocked onto 1. Ultimate from BMT does hit 2, but Scream is living through. In fact, he's finding him a big push by Variety. Finds 2 in the turret. Ends up cleaning the kill onto Scream. Now Pagon in danger, finds the Whirlpool, finds the knockback. And with Final K on rotation through, Variety goes down to Panda Cat, who's made a rotation towards mid.
I did not expect out of everyone to kill Variety there. I did not think Panda Cat was going to be the one. Definitely thought Final K could have grabbed that, but the duo lane makes the full-on rotation over to mid. He's able to confirm that one, whereas Pagon goes and covers Final K's wave for him. 4-1 in favor of the Jade Dragons, while Netroid is just going to grab some farm over in the left lane. And game number 2, Chernobog was flying away, but the Ishtar is also making those big rotations, leaving Netroid to just farm alone in this duo lane. Gold certainly in their favor, 1,600 in favor of the Jade Dragons, of course. And this is 7 minutes into the game, J-Mag. I mean, Pyromancer's not even in option yet. I'm curious to see what the Jade Dragons are going to do with the current lead they've built for themselves. Getting these beats down consistently. Maybe go over to Netroid and try and find some action.
Purple Field locks him in. Slow by PBM. But as soon as that dive bomb comes through, the root not going to do too much there. So Netroid will be fine. And I think maybe the important thing to note out of that rotation from Panda Cat Trail is that Panda Cat didn't lose out on any farm. He's a level up over Netroid at this point. Stack-wise, Panda Cat is doing better in that department, able to get more Devourer's Gauntlet stacks up compared to Netroid. That Panda Cat, or that rotation from Panda Cat, that Panda Cat rotation, didn't cost him anything.
I think that was just, you know, Netroid had 3 waves built up. Now he's getting a little bit of extra gold, but I think you're right. It wasn't the biggest deal, especially getting a kill on a Variety. That's going to help you out a ton in that regard. I think the fight between a Hou-Yi and an Ishtar from behind doesn't look too clean, so probably smart to just run away. Variety stuck in the Pillars of Agony. The Volcanic Lightning going to be chasing down Variety. He has the blink, but he's constantly in combat. Doesn't have a chance, and the Kraken's going to confirm that one.
Another rotation by the Dragons to the right. The Kings move towards mid. It's only Polar Bear Mike, but that is one fast RDO to get his way out of there. Mail of Renewal online as well, so a little bit of extra HP you'd have to deal with to kill the bear. Jade Dragons up 5-1 in kills. Picked themselves up a Trebuchet and 2,000 gold up. This is similar pacing to what we saw in game number 1, Charlie. But we saw what happened in game 1 where the Kings stall out. They grab a couple of objectives and they push us to a 40-plus game. Captain Twig gets the beads away from Pagon, stun onto Genetics, locked inside the Whirlpool. But the Jade Dragons, a small, but at least an early lead.
Yeah, I would say that's worth for the Camelot Kings, using the Gravity Surge to make sure that Pagon's beads are down for a bit. It's only extra worth it if you loop around once that ultimate comes back up and really try to find a kill onto this Poseidon. 2-0 currently. Pagon has been an integral part of the early game fights here with that Kraken. So for the next 2 minutes or so, you got to be watching your positioning here, especially if Genetics is around. Just so easy to apply the Fracture into knock-up combo. I mean, you essentially can't miss it unless you're dropping the Whirlpool down to try and cripple out that Fracture, but the knock-up, nonetheless, is going to be effortless for them. So definitely watching the positioning. BMT got the meatball as well from a distance. So is that enough, though, for the Jade Dragon to stop this all-out aggression they've been having? I doubt it, but I think maybe Pagon, at the very least, will sit back for the time being until, of course, Captain Twig's ultimate comes back up, and it's almost here.
2-0-3 for Pagon to open this game up. Been part of all 5 of the kills that have happened across the map. Even the fact that Panda Cat has been a part of one of those. And a funny part of that, it was against the Soul Laner. How often do we see a kill on the Hunter that's against the enemy solo laner this early in the game? Not very. It just shows how active both these teams are trying to be. And this time it's the Dragons who pull the Gold Fury early. It's been the Kings in games 1 and 2 to grab these early objectives to start this PvE game off early for themselves. But it's the Dragons who answer first. Pyromancer now responds for the Kings. Final K is here. This Pyromancer is not going down as quickly as that they would want. Now it's an ultimate expended by BMT. Camelot Kings hit the Pyromancer. Can they get out? Cripple onto Captain Twig, cannot get out. Volcanic Lightning off the mark and pushed back by Variety, but it's a Pyromancer for 1 for the Kings.
Yeah, I'm not sure how worth it that was. I think making Captain Twig tank up the Pyromancer a little bit unfortunate. Probably would have been able to get out if he wasn't tanking up that objective for such a long time. Good confirm at the very least for the Camelot Kings, but that gold lead's not shrinking up anytime soon, especially losing a member for the objective and losing your Greater Scorpion in the process. So far this game has been all dragons all the time. Variety might be in for a rude awakening as he gets the Lawbringer out, but caught immediately by the Kraken. Pagon gonna confirm his 3rd kill of the game.
3rd kill of the game, part of 6 of 7 of them so far. The Jade Dragons, I mean, this is what we're more accustomed to seeing from them. This down and dirty play style, force players and force teams to fight at their level, and they've been doing just that. Not only did they grab the gold Fury earlier on, another kill for themselves after that Pyromancer, and then after, once again, Variety on this tier has not been able to find too much success so far, sitting at 0-3.
Yeah, I even said how much I liked the tier at the beginning of the game. I allowed to take that back. So far,
I'll let you do over.
Yeah, so far a lot of pressure has been put onto the tier in Variety's favor, I suppose. Or I guess just giving him some extra credit. He has been under a lot of fire. It's not like the tier has been underperforming. Has been able to get some beats down, hit some clutch Fearlesses, set up for a few. I mean, the 1 kill I suppose that BigmanTingz had was a double Fearless, only confirmed 1. So Variety's been piloting the tier well. I think the Jade Dragons more so just have a lot of answers at the moment. You can see Genetics and Twig sitting around the corner here, probably trying to find some beads or some setup onto a pull. But at the very least, hey, Netroid's got that tower pretty weak, so that's some free gold the Camelot Kings could grab really at any moment. I gotta keep your eye on Scream though. He's been very active on the map. Currently heading over to the left side, possibly looking for a gank. But it looks like the dual lane isn't gonna step up, so Pele gonna hover around mid for the moment.
It's at least a level up on everybody for the Jade Dragons across the board. Half level at least for Final K versus Variety. But not only that, nearly 5,000 gold in the lead, seeing closer to about that 4,500 mark for the Jade Dragons. And we saw in game number 1, the Dragons were able to get to a near 8,000 to 10,000 gold lead before we saw the Camelot Kings fight back. But by the time that we saw the Kings fight back, we were sitting 28 to 30 minutes into the game when the builds were already starting to stabilize. But if the Dragons can build this early, maybe a little bit sooner, get to that 10K mark a little bit faster, could make it difficult for the Camelot Kings. But this is really, at least around these objectives, it's not guaranteed either way. Kraken and Earthshaker both do a lot of damage. Just comes down to maybe who can pull the trigger a little bit sooner between these two mid laners.
Oh no, Scream with the wrap around here, possibly looking for, never mind, wants the 1v1 versus Captain Twig.
Whoa.
Gonna go to the open, good peel from, nope, not enough.
Able to take that 1v2. Now Variety locked in place. Lawbringer up over the top. Kraken will hit Variety. Not going to knock him up, though. And he's just surrounded by 4. Earthshaker does hit 3. And that puts the mid laner and the carry low. Netroid jumps on in. Whirlpool will stop. Genetics goes in. Takes 3 with him. Takes down Pagon. And now Variety at very low HP. Scream wants to go back in, but has been slowed down from doing so. Does get the damage on Genetics. Finds a couple of shots with those Pyroclasts. And with the help of PBM and Final K, who's rotated over. It's another kill for the Jade Dragons, maybe 2, with Netroid going down. Variety and BigmanTingz can only watch on.
I cannot believe that Variety went into that to the sky. Such a risky call. Maybe a Fearless could net a kill onto Polar Bear Mike, gonna proc that Mail Renewal. As Scream actually might be able to come back in here and try and get some damage. Wasn't able to find it. BMT with the backfire confirms that kill onto Scream. And here comes Twig on the way. He's got Suku, has some good speed. Is he able to catch anyone out? Panda Cat or Mike. Could be Hughes. How about 1? Panda Cat gone. How about 2? Still looking for PBM.
Nope, no more PBM.
And by that I mean the purple buff.
Yeah, purple buff. That's what you meant. That's the one that Captain Twig wants. 1 and 3 now on the Wheelish. Very awkward fight, to say the least, between both those two teams on the left side. Starting out, we're finding at least 1 pick for the Jade Dragons, and then this weird back and forth tug of war. Genetics goes back in with Variety. Then the fight goes from, that fight started at purple buff, went to tier 2, went all the way to the middle of the lane, and ended back at the same place that it started over at that tier 2.
Looks like.
And now a Primal Fury for the Camelot Kings. No response from the Dragons, and this is where the Camelot Kings find their success in finding their way back in this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, looks like the fight truly ends at the Fury over on the left side of the map. Pyromancer has spawned back in here, and you can see Pagon going to set up some vision. Not for a pull, just, yeah, there's really no one up to tank this objective thus far, but as you said, closing up that gold lead was 4,500, now closer to 3K for the time being. It's going to help out a bit trying to get the itemization down, as you can tell. I would say pretty much everyone currently playing as a deficit, but the Jade Dragons to be the first ones to pull this Pyromancer, and no one from the Camelot Kings even in earshot. Genex tried to step up for a second, but it's not going to matter. Pyromancer definitely going the way of the Dragons for free in that situation. And the tower actually never went down over on left. It's 1 HP, and the Jade Dragons were able to grab that tier 1 before Netroid could even get his tower. He's had it at 1 HP since like 3 minutes into the game. It's not going to be the call since that massive rotation over from Panda Cat to right to kill Variety. And still, there's so much gold, just an auto attack away, but they won't be able to find it.
Nope. Gonna be a little while until that tier 1 tower goes down. Maybe just one straight minion wave will be all that it takes to drop that one down. BigmanTingz going for a bit of a different third item than we're accustomed to. Normally we've been seeing Obshard for that big 20% penetration. But this time it's a Charon's coin for BigmanTingz. Variety will be fine, but bit of a different choice there by BMT making the swap up.
Wants a little bit of extra movement speed, possibly. Juke out some of these abilities, juke out the Krakens, that sort of thing. Captain Twig did make the rotation over to left, but did not want to get aggressive once he saw Pagon was here as well. But now blinking in, gets the beads down immediately. That's going to be a nice free blink onto Pagon later on. But I guess Captain Twig's blinks down. So, I mean, you got 160 seconds to try and find some aggression onto this Poseidon. You found 1 kill on him so far. But a lot of damage coming through from Pagon. Has the Doom Orb, has the Divine, and the Spear of Death. So that flat pen is going to make sure that these Krakens are really shrunken later on.
Captain Twig will rotate through the jungle, and it's honestly one of the first games where Captain Twig hasn't been behind, even despite the fact that he's sitting at 1 and 3 compared to 3, 2, and 7. Hasn't fallen super far behind Scream, has been able to close up some of that gap, just waiting for his buff to respawn so he can go back and take that. We're kind of seeing at least a reflection in response for Scream in the build. Goes for a third item, Magi's, compared to just the pure power that Captain Twig is going with this build. Erendite for the jungler of the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, I do like the Magi's. I think it just gets a lot of value here, especially if you're trying to play as aggressive as Scream does. You don't want to be constantly getting knocked up and pulled back into Captain Twig. You don't want to be using your Volcanic Lightning for CC immunity. You'd much prefer getting aggressive with that. So the Magi just helps out a bit so Scream can hold on to those beads and try and continue to fight. Oni Fury's not going to be up for a bit, and it looks like the Camelot King should be able to deal with this Trebuchet quick and easy. But because there's no real objectives up, I'm just keeping my eye out on from where the ADCs have been going. Panda Cat not sitting over in duo lane, actually does make the rotation to mid for the time being. I mean, the only reason I could think of an ADC grouping here is the Jade Dragons want to fight, or they want to bait into Fire Giant. Either way, Final K just backed up and got a Book of the Dead. A little bit of extra damage, but also going to be a lot harder to kill.
On his rotation in. Netroid not a part of the team just yet, but now he's making his moves towards the mid lane to rejoin the rest of the Kings. All 5 Jade Dragons standing by. Eyes on the tower, me eyes on Variety. Blink Fearless will take the beads away from Panda Cat. Safety now away from the Hunter. Meanwhile, Scream will dash his way as fast as he can to the opposite side. Jump away by Netroid from the Whirlpool. Final K loses his beads, goes in aggressively, has the Pillar of Agony on top of 3, but Genex will try and get out, does make it just in time with barely enough HP to live through. Final K as well on death's door, but he'll be able to back away. No teleport available to the Hades. It'll be a long walk back for the solo of the Dragons.
Yeah, take a look at the beads cooldowns, though. Only Scream holding on to them currently. That's why Captain Twig wants to get aggressive in this fight. Still has that gravity surge. Still could look for a possible pull. Pagon's beads are up in 1 second. Now are fully up, so I guess that's going to be the end of that. The Jade Dragons heading over to Oni Fury on the left side. That's a massive ultimate from Final K. I mean, that's sort of what Book of the Dead allows for currently. You can get aggressive, do that big damage, but also be fine eating an ult from BMT. The rest of the damage from from Netroid, and then just being able to get that shield and get out. Also, good ultimate by Genetics to get the rest of the team gone. Pulling for PBM, gonna be getting some damage.
A lot of damage to him. He'll go in, find the stun, dash his way out. Now Scream. No bubble. It's been popped by Genetics. A dash in, but a double Fearless from Variety. Needs a little bit more damage. He can't find it. PBM once again out. Will the Volcanult find it? No, it's only going to clip Pagon and puts him down to about 100 HP of his own. Both PBM and Pagon are going to have to go back to base. So the Camelot Kings kick that fight off strong.
If BMT had that Soul Reaver finish, Pagon definitely going down there. But Pagon also didn't have the Soul Reaver, I suppose, so just sitting on a lot of gold. Good plays all around. I mean, I thought Variety might have been diving a bit too far there, but had the CC, had the lockdown to confirm onto PBM to set up the pull. The damage just was not good enough. So despite the fact that the Camelot Kings are a bit down in gold currently, still able to fight back and step up to these objectives. Pyromancer, one of them, started up here as Variety's on zone duty. Looks like not enough DPS without Netroid and BigmanTingz here, so they're going to drop that one immediately. We sort of skipped the Oni Fury dance phase and just went right into Fire Giant. These ADCs haven't been over to left lane in quite some time. They're not really concerned about hitting level 20. They're just going to be dancing over here for the Pyromancer.
Yeah, I mean, who needs an Oni Fury at this point? Camelot Kings have learned their lesson. They can't take one of those freely. Jade Dragon's going to grab a few. Variety to the backline once again. Gets the knock up onto him. Lawbringer will not get out in time. He is gone. Final K locks in BMT, who will throw out the Earthshaker and get some decent damage against the Dragons, but now 2 gone for the Camelot Kings. Yeah, Dragons, they've been wanting this Fire Giant for a while. Now's their perfect opportunity to grab it with no one on the way for the Kings to stop this one. All 5 of the Dragons with fire around their waist.
Yeah, Variety just going a little bit too far there. Only level 16, not tanky enough to make plays like that. I understand the one to set up for your team and to try and set up for that gravity surge, just not going to be the case. Camelot Kings going for the glory play. Gonna grab the Oni Fury, but what are you gonna lose for it? Probably everyone. Genetics, the only one still alive, has to the skies, but here comes Pagon and PBM. One route might set up this kill, but it looks like not gonna chase it that far. And once that Whirlpool missed, that's gonna be it. 2 down for the Oni Fury this late into the game. I can't imagine that one's worth it.
The Sunlight Swords immediately after by Panda Cat. While the Fury does go to the Camelot Kings, it's 4 deaths in total that go to the Dragons. 2 in a Fire Giant, plus 2 then losing the Fury. It's all coming up. Jade Dragons for the time being, 8,000 gold in the lead. All towers on left side gone, all towers in mid, and all towers in right. Not a single permanent structure left standing between the Jade Dragons and breaking open the Camelot Kings base. For the time being, the Jade Dragons will group up. They will return back to base and spend up some of the massive pockets of gold that they've got for themselves.
What if you could buy your towers back?
How much gold we talking for buying a tower?
I don't know, like 5,000. Like you're late game, you know. Like you can't just be buying it regular. I'm talking like, oh, my tier 2's gone. I don't really want to spend any more on 3K pots. I'm gonna save up to revive my tower, you know?
That'd be crazy, actually.
I'm trying to think like how useful it'd actually be. I imagine you just because late game they just get auto attack so quickly.
I'd say by that point they're kind of just dying.
Yeah, I just you know, I don't even think
you could buy an extra tower early, like you save up 5,000
Oh, you could
gold.
put it under your Phoenix, like.
Yeah, you spawn one just like in the middle of the map, just like right in the middle of your lane. You just spawn up a tower for 5,000 gold.
Yeah, I think that would be
funny.
a terrible use of your gold, but yeah, you certainly could.
I don't know. They can't step up halfway into the lane wherever it pops up there. I'd say that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I suppose, but then you have no items because 5,000 gold. I mean,
that's items. I got an extra tower, bro.
I suppose so. I bet the Jade Dragons would not like it if the Camelot Kings had an extra tower, but currently they don't, so they're able to push down this left side of the map with their Fire Giant for another minute and 42 seconds. Immediately stepping up our Panda Cat and Pagon. The rest of the carries nowhere in sight. You can see that Scream and Final K pushing up mid as well. A little bit of a split push here. I like the split up here. It just depends on what you're going to do with it. Currently, Pagon the only one hitting this tower, but goes in his Genetics.
Genetics stunned. Eats a lot of damage, but able to dash back to his team to get that heal through. Panda Cat dashed in. Vulcan ult hits Scream and hits Panda Cat. That's 1 gone. Variety out and Final K down. Netroid gets that kill, and a miss hit by Panda Cat may have just turned this game around entirely as BigmanTingz finds the double And the Camelot Kings have pushed the Dragons away from the Phoenix, 8,000 gold down.
I mean, I don't know what you were expecting, J-Mac. We're only 25 minutes into this game. It's not going to end for another 20 at the very least if game 1 and 2 are any indication. So, of course, the first and second sieges don't work. Well, all I saw was Variety blink to the back line, was distracting very well, and then a massive ult from BMT. I didn't get the look at what happened with Panda Cat, but just great zone duty as well as just set up for the team. And Janex goes in first, I suppose. Wasn't able to really find too much, but just the threat of the backline die was all that really needed. Tier 2 and left goes down, and now the Camelot Kings get a chance to retreat, stealing away some buffs in the meantime. Captain Twig actually using that gravity surge for the extra damage onto this mid-tier 2 tower. So now all towers are gone. And no one's got 5,000 gold to buy them back because that doesn't exist. We just made that mechanic up.
Dang, unfortunate. Now, it looked like Panda Cat may have pulled, and I jokingly say pulled a Zapman, but it's something that happened to Zapman a couple of weeks ago when he was playing Ishtar. Wanted to go for the distance shot, the extra range and attack speed on that first ability. So you hit 1, then you hit 3, but maybe didn't hit the 1 in time and instead hit dash and immediately dashes in to Phoenix range. And that, unfortunately, for Zapman at the time, ended up causing a death for him, caused a death for Panda Cat in this case, and a turned-around team fight and a turnaround game for the Camelot Kings. Now, it's only about 4,500 gold that separate the two teams when it was sitting at nearly 8,000 plus by the time that push. We have returned to an even state.
What's going to happen here?
What are they doing? There's a ward.
Yeah.
The Dragons know they're there. Okay, well now they don't.
Well,
they de-warded.
Okay, let's walk through what could have happened. There's no minions.
Right.
There's no Phoenixes that are down.
Right.
So what, you were ulting to the left side Phoenix with no minions, I guess would have been the call, but doesn't matter. Fire Giant has touchback down on the right side of the map. Oh, it's happening.
Genetics. He'll fly the team into fire. Variety the only one walking of his own volition. Fire Giant started. PBM finds a stun on a couple, but needs some extra help. BigmanTingz throws out the old Kraken, hits BigmanTingz. The Kings get the Fire Giant, but Pagon gets the first kill. Lawbringer out by Variety. Genetics in danger, and the volcanic lightning from Scream. The turnaround by the Jade Dragons. Now it's 3 of the Kings who are on the grayscale screen, and the Dragons can surge through the mid. They've got a trebuchet, but again, it's Variety +1 to defend against, but this time it's 5 of the Dragons.
I mean, this time, what was that play? I guess Variety, we can talk about it later. It's got a big order to try and fill here. Mid-Phoenix going down as Variety has the wraparound. Netroid does not have the ultimate. Is going to try and go through. Panda Cat gets pushed back in.
Oh, Variety's down. It's only Netroid. We're not going to 40, Trelly. We're stopping it here at minute 28. The Jade Dragons of a botched Phoenix defense, of a botched siege, have turned it around and a Fire Giant push instead. And will now take the Titan, take game number 3 in the set against the Camelot Kings.
I cannot tell you what the play was there. The only call I could think of was that the Camelot Kings thought that the Jade Dragons weren't at Fire Giant and were at their base because they saw them on the ward. But everyone was well aware that the To the Skies was coming. The Fire Giant burn. They wasted so many ultimates trying to go for it. The fight after the fact's never going to look clean when you drop that many ultimates on the Fire Giant. So it seems like a pretty no-brainer fight for the Jade Dragons to take after that.
Jade Dragons, again, don't know what happened with Panda Cat going into the Phoenix earlier on. Good turnaround by the Kings. They find 3 kills, able to push back the Dragons, get themselves set up, and then questionable play after. I mean, sitting around inside of the jungle when there's nothing to gain is just such a head-scratcher of a play, Trelly.
I did seem to me like they were going to ult underneath the Phoenix, pop Frenzy, get it, and then apparently get out. But again, Fire Giant just spawned back in. They didn't have a minion wave, so it would have been pretty slow. And instead, the audible was, let's fly to Fire Giant, and the Jade Dragons were ready for it.
Jade Dragons had it known. They even had a couple of people already at fire to stop that one. It's the Dragons who come out on top, 2-1 in this set. That's it from us on the cast. We'll throw it over to the desk to break it down.
That's right, and ultimately the Jade Dragons get it done. It takes all 3, but they're able to get the win here nonetheless. After the Camelot Kings stand strong in game number 1, Jade Dragons win games 2 and 3. And what a set we have between our second and third seeds at the moment right now here in the SPL, especially down the stretch. This is the last time these two teams will play prior to Phase 3 playoffs, potentially. Really potentially prior to Worlds, depending on how all of the mixing and matching breaks down. So the Jade Dragons happy to get the win here. In this one, a bit more convincing, Myth. I think that the Jade Dragons, look, still some funky moments in this one, right? This one, still far from cut and dry. But as far as distance, duration, those types of things, ultimately the shortest, quickest, cleanest game for the Dragons.
The most firmly within the Jade Dragons standard win conditions, right?
Sure.
PBM, death balling at level 0 at whatever buff he just happens to show up at. 4-man death balling across the map into the solo and the mid lane. The Jade Dragons brought aggression from minute 1 to minute done. But a couple miraculous ultimates from the Camelot Kings, BMT in particular, just lining up some of those game-changing Vulcan ultimates may have extended the match, but nonetheless, it is the Jade Dragons that come out on top. And I got to give credit to PBM, of course. I feel like he had a phenomenal performance in every single one of these games. But I also want to highlight Pagon, man, because some of those Krakens were just different. Some of those rotations were just perfectly timed. He was, despite getting active all the way across the map from like level 5 onward, he never really fell all that far behind in experience and gold, which is pretty difficult to do.
It was, and look, when you get into these late game moments, right, and the shot calling is so important, that's when you know the loud voices, the shot calling type voices on your team need to be heard. I know Mike able to provide that a bit for this team, and Polar Bear Mike standing by with J-Mac for the post-game interview.
Yeah, thank you so much. I got PBM's support for the Jade Dragons. First off, congrats on your win up against Camelot Kings. Know that this win is a big one for you guys, considering y'all are fighting for, at least at the moment, that number 2 position in the seeding out there. Now, after you guys go a 45-minute game 1, a 43-minute game 2, I mean, talk to me about how you got to rally the troops back together to kind of get set up for a game 3 in this case.
We were never really too concerned. We just made a lot of really stupid mistakes. My ADC tweeted that he was going to baby their ADC, and then he inted the entire day. So it felt like we were playing 4v5 out there, and it just is what it is.
Now, speaking of your ADC, kind of run me through what happened on that Phoenix Siege. Did he just dash in? Did he have kind of what I said is like pulling a Zapman where you don't hit the shot you want? Like, what happened there?
Well, his alt account name is Walmart Zapman, so he just wanted to pay homage to Zapman, the GOAT, of course, the 3 times. So he just, did his best role play, and I think he was pretty accurate. He absolutely inted our game, so it was pretty good.
It ended up delaying that one for a little bit longer there. Now, finding these wins, again, every single one of these games matters because you only play against these teams one more time throughout this before we start getting into the playoffs. I mean, how important is a top 2 spot for you guys moving in towards those playoff stages?
Top 2 is obviously nice. I mean, we're not really, barring something insane happen, we're not really too concerned about making worlds. Our main goal is just improve every week, learn with the meta as it goes. So as long as we can take something away from each set and try to improve, I'm good to go.
Improvement from the Jade Dragons across the board. They find themselves a win against the Camelot Kings. Congrats on the win, PBM. I'll let you get back with the team to celebrate. We'll get back with the desk to continue breaking it down.
Always something good to take away from interviews with Mike and how the Jade Dragons are feeling. Still crazy to think about, Myth, now that I put that in context. Again, just kind of depending on how seeding and wins and losses and things like that play out. This is the last actual scheduled game the Dragons and the Kings have against one another prior to what could be these teams qualifying to Worlds, of course. With playoffs and group stages and things like that. There's still potential for another matchup, but what a treat we got to see these 2 teams go at it one more time. In this one, you needed Mike to step up on the RDO, but I'm glad you give a shout out to Pagon because Pagon was lights out in this set. Pagon, over the last 5 or 6 games, has actually looked very, very good for this Jade Dragons team. So you're talking about playstyles peaking towards the right time. I think the Dragons are getting there. Now, Myth, one thing that you talked about going into this set was wanting to see diversified win conditions. Do you feel like you saw some of that today?
For sure, man. I mean, anytime the Jade Dragons go to like a 40-minute game and win it, I'd say that's different from the standard, right? So showing that they're capable of taking these long dances around Fire Giants, figuring out the macro, how they want to approach these later game sieges from a more even state. Certainly very different. The willingness to play through players that weren't Scream is something that we haven't had too many opportunities to see either, but certainly there this time. Final K got a lot of emphasis during the laning phase, got a lot of rotations towards him to try and make sure that Hades was able to get involved. Panda Cat got involved a lot earlier as well. So I'd argue the Jade Dragons, it's a very different look at them today, but still a great one nonetheless. And,
this was a tough set for Twig, I think, on the King side. Never quite got the engines revved up out of the jungle. 1-4, 2-7, 1-5 in the 3 games here against the Dragons. Now, a good bit of assist there in game 2. And there was macro shot calling type things that happened here in Game 3. So definitely not all on Twig. But when you look at Scream, who's doing 18,000 damage, and purely on damage numbers, Scream had a fantastic game here in Game 3 as well. And that core kind of 4, right? I mean, everyone hovering right around that 18,000 mark. It just felt overwhelming from the Jade Dragons in game number 3. And so their fans, the players themselves, when you look at a set like this, because this is now, when you start to get to this point in the year, Myth, this is when the games, of course, during the regular phase of the SPL, but also with playoffs, potential group stages, worlds, everything matters so much more. And the outcomes of these different matches start to heat up a little bit. So seeing the Dragons remain competitive in a very back-and-forth set and able to pull out the win in such a convincing way here in Game 3, something that the fans and the players themselves will definitely be happy with. And then the Kings, something to be happy about. You're able to push the Dragons to 3 and remain competitive all set long. Now, that is only our first of 3 sets we've got for you here on Saturday. Another great one, the Oni Warriors and the Titans up next. That one, I suppose, middle-of-the-table-esque matchup with the Oni Warriors still kind of battling it out for that top 4, and the Titans looking to get things going with Stu, their new ADC here, towards the back end of phase number 3. And then to end the day, an opposite side of the standings matchup with the Leviathans and the Valkyries going toe-to-toe. And really, Myth, I think for the Valks, remember we talked about top 2 and bottom 2. Bottom 2 teams don't go to playoffs at all. They have to go to group stages. Top 2 teams only have to win 1 set at Phase 3 playoffs to go to Worlds. And so the Leviathans trying to create some distance up top. And I think mathematically, really the Valkyries need to start getting going here and stringing some wins together. So this one's very important for both teams.
Well, the Valkyries have only ever lost to the Leviathans the once.
That's right.
Unfortunately for them, it was the most recent matchup,
That's right.
well, 2 weeks ago now, but had some time to adjust, did some VOD review. I'm sure they'll have something cooking up for the Atlantis Leviathans.
And the Jade Dragons officially, as of now, in first seed. Of course, the 1 extra game in hand. If the Leviathans win this one, should leapfrog over the Jade Dragons with 1 less loss. But for now, the Dragons in sole possession of first place. And for the Oni Warriors, you're talking about keeping pace. So our next matchup, Oni Warriors versus Titans, you're talking about Oni Warriors trying to keep pace with some of those upper teams, a shout at maybe one of the top 2 spots. This one, crucially important for them. I don't foresee the Titans risking falling into that bottom 2. And so I think now maybe more momentum and chemistry base for the Titans than anything. But it's a pretty high-pressure set for the Oni Warriors.
I think so. They need to find that bounce back, especially after a loss up against the Olympus Bolts. Want to prove that they are still in peak form, still capable of playing at the absolute peak. Yeah, I mean, that was a tough one. But I think now with the Titans still start trying to figure things out with some recent roster changes, how they want to approach the macro, what type of drafts they want to play. This is going to be a good testing point for both of these squads. Maybe a little bit more onus on the Warriors, though.
It feels like Oni Warriors and Titans always find their way into battling against one another, usually during playoff-type events. Obviously, every team playing everyone during the regular phase here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. But something about the Oni Warriors and the Titans and their matchups always have something a little bit extra in store, and we've got that one for you right up next. Oni Warriors, Tartarus Titans, best of 3 coming up next.